Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal. See playlist for other chapters and novels. Join now our Telegram channel now and enjoy exclusive early access. t.me/blood_immortal_official. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 1021, Beast. What are you thinking of doing? In a deep underground abyss of the seal, an elderly man sat there cross-legged, surrounded by golden-colored, twisted, mysterious text characters. Those text characters bore with them a boundless power of Buddhist nature. At the same time, there was even a cage of light appearing above the head of this elderly man. It was like an 8-point umbrella that shrouded the elderly man within it, suppressing him in this place entirely. Arg! Relentless shouts arose as the elderly man wanted to break out of the seal and go kill that lad outside. However, even if he were to budge slightly, he would be suppressed by an unparalleled Buddhist power that locked him down entirely. The elderly man wanted to spit out a mouthful of old blood. However, he then thought of how he had just lost so much essence blood. If he were to spit out any more, he would definitely be dead meat. ****, how dare you scam away dozens of thousands of years worth of powers from your ancestor? You're a beast, the demon ancestor spat out. At this moment, Lin Fan was just standing there carefreely. Looking at the sealed mountain, he revealed a bedazzling smile. What are you getting so hasty for? If there's anything, we should talk things out amicably. I did tell you I don't want any more of those pills, yet you were the one who forced me to pop them down. Who else can you blame honestly? Lin Fan chuckled out. The selfless demon ancestor was enraged right now. His might reigned supreme, and he had once maintained control over the entire world. Since when had he ever endured such humiliation? If the flaming rage in his heart were to burst out, it would be enough to engulf the entire world. However, now that he was sealed, there was absolutely nothing he could do about it. Alright, even if your ancestor were to expend even more of my source today, I'm going to have you suppressed completely. The selfless demon ancestor was enraged right now. Instantly, the sealed mountain quaked violently. A torrential demonic chi surged out into the skies, causing a demonic palm to extend out of the void. This demonic palm bore with it a deathly aura and was pitch black in color. As it grabbed out, it shattered the void apart around it. Lin Fan was taken aback and started to cuss out at this guy's mother. He had not thought that the selfless demon ancestor would really want to come and kill him so badly that he wouldn't even care about wasting his own life's essence to transmit this power out. Even this bit of power here was enough to have Lin Fan feeling as though a gigantic mountain was crushing down on him. The repressing pressure coiled over in a berserk manner, capable of leaving one entirely unable to resist. "Ant, you shall pay the price for your actions." The selfless demon ancestor struck out with an extraordinary momentum. That destructive aura rippled out and crushed down at Lin Fan. Bloody FCK, *T was getting real right now. However, for Lin Fan, what could this amount to? He summoned out the heaven and earth smelt immediately. Looking at the demonic palm that was descending from the skies, he climbed into the heaven and earth smelt ever so slowly. For someone as old as yourself, please take your time to slap down slowly. I'll be waiting right here. Lin Fan shouted at the sealed mountain before closing the lid and hiding within the heaven and earth smelt. Boom! A wild explosion boomed out, causing the entire world to rattle from it. Staying within the heaven and earth smelt, Lin Fan could feel an impact that was transmitted over. The insides of the heaven and earth smelt tumbled over like the raging seas such that Lin Fan nearly spat out a mouthful of saliva. This was so darned bloody formidable. The might of that single palm was far from normal. It had surpassed even the mightiest strike of a golden immortal at full power. The fact that it could cause the entire heaven and earth smelt to rattle as such was evidence of how sick it was. However, what fart use was that? No matter how formidable the power was, this was the heaven and earth smelter, and not some cheap stuff. Even if it were a powerful being, so what? There was no way they were going to be able to slap this open. The selfless demon ancestor was merciless with his attacks as he spared no effort even at the cost of expending his source. He just had to kill this ant. Even though he was being sealed, the power that he could transmit out was enough to destroy almost every single being. Even if it were a golden immortal, there was no way they could withstand it. Demon ancestor, are you done with your slapping or not? Lin Fan opened up the lid and shouted out. The selfless demon ancestor who was soothing his heart right now froze up when he heard that voice. His face shone with a look of disbelief. How could this be? You, the selfless demon ancestor was dumbfounded right now. He had not expected that things would turn out as such. You, just that bit of capabilities and you expect to be able to kill me? Who are you trying to scare off? Lin Fan stepped out from within the heaven and earth smelt. But, when he caught sight of his surroundings, he was totally flabbergasted. In a radius of 10,000 miles, everything looked as though it had caved in. It was a horrifying sight to behold. This selfless demon ancestor was not normal, far from normal. If not for the fact that he was so steady, he might have been slapped to death by this selfless demon ancestor for real. The selfless demon ancestor was completely taken aback right now. He had not expected that he would meet such a tough nut. This was simply unbelievable. Just what in world is that treasure of yours? How could it possibly possess such strength? The selfless demon ancestor exclaimed out. He had never seen a smelt like that before. In fact, he couldn't even see through that treasure at all. But, the fact that it was able to withstand a single slap of his. What sort of a treasure was that? Even if it were a supreme-grade immortal weapon, it would be unable to withstand a palm strike as such. To think that this ant would be in possession of a weapon like this. This was completely annoying and detestable. This was especially the case for that fella who was still down there taunting him. How could the selfless demon ancestor endure this? Oi, selfless demon ancestor. So, are you still coming at me or not? If you aren't, I'm going to take my leave already. However, I still have really got to give my thanks to you today. If not for your generosity, I wouldn't have had such a miraculous encounter. You know, the thing about life is that you will inevitably run into retards at times. Then again, if you don't run into retards, you won't know the feeling of accomplishment. There is a really good reason why you're being sealed in captivity right now. After all, your intellect isn't all that high. It's already quite fortunate that you aren't dead yet. Lin Fan's crap was relentless. However, every single piece of crap had the selfless demon ancestor getting even more riled up. Roars and curses with all sort of vile words burst forth from within the sealed mountain. The selfless demon ancestor could no longer tolerate this. He was a supreme demon ancestor. To think that he would be lectured by some small sh*t here. Where was he to put his face? In fact, Lin Fan's mockery only served to increase the selfless demon ancestor's hatred toward the boundless future Buddha Lord. After sealing him here for dozens of thousands of years, he had never once appeared again. No-vel-b in .c ohm. It came to a point where the selfless demon ancestor was almost ready to accede to the boundless future Buddha Lord's demands, all for the sake of breaking out to kill this lad cruelly. Shut up, the selfless demon ancestor bellowed out. However, his voice was no longer as domineering as before. Seemed like the toll of that palm strike from earlier on was pretty real as well. Hooey, boring, your daddy's gonna take my leave now. Lin Fan patted his bum and kept the heaven and earth smelt in his storage as he prepped to leave. The sealed-up selfless demon ancestor hollered out. Even after Lin Fan's figure had disappeared, he was still unable to quench the raging flames in his heart. However, he made sure to remember that fella for life. As long as he could break out of this seal, the first task of order would be to kill that ant mercilessly so that the latter would know what the outcome of humiliating your demon ancestor was. The selfless demon ancestor vented out all the indignance in his heart before settling down. This time around, his losses were truly tremendous. If he wanted to recover from this, he might require an extremely long time. And just as the selfless demon ancestor entered a recuperative state, the ant who had left earlier on suddenly bloody came back with sniggers all over. Beast, what are you back here for? The selfless demon ancestor roared out. Lin Fan chuckled out, I forgot something earlier on, and I'm here to test it out. If it were to work, I might even be able to kill you. Horse fart, the selfless demon ancestor was thoroughly in a fit right now. To think that this lad would even be thinking about killing him. He then roared out in a contemptuous laughter, stop with your daydreams. This seal is created by the boundless future Buddha Lord personally. With just someone like you, even if you were to cultivate for another 1,000,000 years, you wouldn't have the capabilities to remove this seal. Remove your mother's seal, your daddy is going to throw you into the pot along with the seal. Lin Fan spoke up. Heaven and earth smelt, come on out. Boom. At this moment, the heaven and earth smelt floated out gently in the voids. Larger, larger, The heaven and earth smelt, which couldn't be considered huge initially, started turning gigantic all of a sudden. Gradually, it turned even larger than that sealed mountain. Thereafter, under Lin Fan's instructions, the heaven and earth smelt flipped around with its opening facing down, and swallowing up the sealed mountain entirely. Lin Fan took a look carefully before nodding his head in satisfaction. Not bad, not bad. The size of the opening fits nicely. Time to hot pot it up. When the selfless demon ancestor sensed the situation, he howled out madly, "Beast! What are you thinking of doing again?" "You'll know in a moment," Lin Fan replied. Chapter 1022 Without Any Fear. Chapter 1022, Without Any Fear. Even though the selfless demon ancestor did not know just what was up with this smelt, he knew that anything that could withstand that palm strike of his must definitely be far from ordinary. And now that this ant had suddenly decided to return here halfway through and take out the treasure once more, it must definitely be for nothing good. Horror, panic. Right now, the selfless demon ancestor decided to place his trust in the powers of the boundless future Buddha Lord. This was a seal set down by the boundless future Buddha Lord. What sort of treasure could be stronger than the boundless future Buddha Lord himself? Ha ha! A berserk laughter rang out into the sky as his face was filled with contempt. Ant, do you think that you will be able to break through the seal of the boundless future Buddha Lord with just your capabilities? You're overestimating your own strength. The selfless demon ancestor roared out in laughter. He had lost too much of his life's essence energy. And, the one to be blamed for all of that was this accursed fella here. HMPH. Whether or not I'm overestimating myself will be revealed soon enough. Also, can you stop trembling while talking? Lin Fan replied with contempt as he placed his palms together and roared out. Heaven and earth smelt. Refine everything in the world. Shing. The ground quaked out and reverberated across all of space-time. All of a sudden, a tremendous suction force burst forth from the heaven and earth smelt. Boom. The godly heaven and earth smelt crushed down slowly as the opening of the smelt seemed to be filled with some demonic power right now. Covered completely. When Lin Fan caught sight of this scene before him, his heart leapt with joy. Pleasurable. This was way too pleasurable. This was exactly what he wanted to see. After the heaven and earth smelt covered the sealed mountain, it gradually began to cage down even further. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. At this moment, the selfless demon ancestor cried out wildly as though he had just bumped into a ghost. He could feel the sealed mountain being enveloped right now. The power of refinement which could smelt every single living being in the world burst forth. Even with the selfless demon ancestor suppressed within, he could feel this power that was emanating out. The power was boundless and horrifying, rendering one entirely incapable of resisting against it. Ha ha ha, Lin Fan roared out in laughter, feeling ecstatic in his heart right now. He had not thought that the heaven and earth smelt could have really swallowed this entire sealed mountain whole. If it were to devour everything, it would be able to suppress the selfless demon ancestor entirely. By then, the amount of experience points gained would be something that Lin Fan could not even begin to dare imagine. That would definitely be a sea of experience points. What could a golden immortal state amount to by then? As long as the selfless demon ancestor were to die, the experience points would be enough for him to ascend to the skies. Even transcending beyond the golden immortal state wouldn't be something difficult at all. Stop it. Your ancestor demands you to stop it. The selfless demon ancestor could feel as though the smelt was just like a wild beast right now that was slowly devouring the sealed mountain. If he were to allow this to carry on, there would really be no other way out. Damn it. The selfless demon ancestor wanted to resist, but it was all for naught. Being sealed here, he had no way of fighting back at all. Any form of resistance would be futile. Lin Fan was euphoric right now. It's done. It's finally going to be done. These ocean-like experience points were about to come into his hands right now. But just at this moment, a strange phenomenon happened. Amitabha, a Buddhist chant rang out across the world as a mighty power of Buddhist nature coiled out through the heavens and earth. Piercing out from the deepest layers of the void, a series of golden beams of light shot from the clouds before shining down onto the world. What's this sh*t? When Lin Fan caught sight of the situation before him, he was stunned. It was as though he had not accounted for this hiccup to happen. Ha ha, boundless future Buddha Lord, you have finally appeared. Let your ancestor out. It's already been dozens of thousands of years now. Just what do you want from me? When the selfless demon ancestor caught sight of this situation, he suddenly hollered out. The boundless demonic voice of his reverberated through the void. But, when it clashed with that power of Buddhist nature, it dissipated away like smoke. It was as though the power was purified away. Boom. A mighty sound boomed out of the void as a gigantic golden hand penetrated through everything in its way and made its slow descent down from the heavens. The gigantic hand radiated with a golden gleam. At the same time, there was an unstoppable Buddhist power that was emanating from it. Piak! The Buddhist palm landed down onto the heaven and earth smelt as though it was trying to stop it. Suddenly, Lin Fan could feel a tremendous power that was slamming down onto the heaven and earth smelt. This power was boundless, just the aftershock alone was something that Lin Fan could barely resist. So strong. This was simply way too strong. Shing! The void exploded as the Buddhist palm used more strength furiously, wanting to wrest over control of the heaven and earth smelt. However, the heaven and earth smelt was a product of the system. How could it be controlled by someone else this easily? Even if the Buddhist power was immensely tremendous, it still could not deal any pressure onto the heaven and earth smelt. The mighty voice was transmitted over once more. It was as though the voice was startled over the strength of the heaven and earth smelt. Lin Fan's heart was slumped right now. Each time, there would always be someone who'd interfere at the most critical moment. The sealed mountain was just about to be caged up right before his eyes, and by then, he would be able to refine the selfless demon ancestor into an ocean worth of experience points. How could he just let someone come and destroy this at this moment? No way. Absolutely no way. Even if it were an invincible, powerful being, they wouldn't be able to stop the actions of your daddy. Cage! Lin Fan roared out and went at it with his life. No matter who they were, they would not be able to stand in the way of your daddy's will. Bam! Bam! The heaven and earth smelt burst forth with a formidable power of refinement. The Buddhist palm that was trying to control the smelt was blown away violently. How could this be? When the selfless demon ancestor caught sight of this scene before him, his heart skipped a beat as though he was in disbelief. Horrifying. This was an endless amount of horror he could feel right here. He had already realized that the Buddhist palm was the palm of the boundless future Buddha Lord. But, to think that it would be blown away. How could this be? Unlimited future. Stop it now. At this moment, a boundless Buddhist voice crushed down. At the same time, there was an extremely thick golden finger that tore through the heaven and earth and suppressed down on Lin Fan. The finger was enlarging continuously in Lin Fan's eyes as every single passing moment brought it ever closer to him. Even though it had yet to arrive before him, the power that had penetrated through everything had already descended upon his head. He means to kill me. Lin Fan was taken aback in his heart as his entire back was filled with sweat. He had not thought that such a powerful being would come and cock block in the middle of everything. All powers, return to home. The heavens and earth shall reunite as one. Lin Fan hollered out without thinking twice. The powers within his body started rumbling out. However, that frightening power was still crushing down everything and pressuring onto Lin Fan's body. Source of power. Using power as the Tao. Unparalleled sword will. Using the swords as the saint. Lin Fan's eyes were focused right now as his powers were channeled to the maximum. This was the boundless future Buddha Lord right here. Even though he had wanted Lin Fan to stop in his actions, he did not stop with his own. This meant that he wanted to take Lin Fan down for real. The source of power that was imparted to Lin Fan by the demonic god Pengu burst out at this moment. At the same time, a boundless sword will streak through the infinite worlds and converged down onto his body. The laws of the golden immortals within his body were all gushing out as well. Right now, Lin Fan's powers had reached a maximum threshold. This was a horrifying state he was in right now. At this moment, Lin Fan sank into a mysterious state of perception. He lifted his hand gently. Even though that hand looked plain and normal as though it did not possess any force to it, it was something that no one should look down upon. Lin Fan's eyes jerked wide open in the next moment as a sharp glint flashed across the entire world. Your daddy shall duel the entire heaven and earth without any fear. Eternal. Lin Fan howled out as his battle intent surged. His fingers curled into a fist and a devastating punch was hurled out toward the incoming palm of the boundless future Buddha Lord in retaliation. Chapter 1023 Boundless Future Buddha Lord. Chapter 1023 Boundless Future Buddha Lord. Obstinately persistent in your errors. With that, you ought to be cast into the endless abyssal hells. The mighty voice boomed out as that boundless Buddhist power filled the entire world. Under this golden finger, Lin Fan felt like an ant. However, even if he was an ant, so what? Even if he wasn't a match for this guy, he still had to give it his all. His will surged as his fighting strength was unparalleled right now. At this moment, Lin Fan's eyes turned serious while that absolutely dauntless spirit of his radiated throughout the world. Boom! A punch that contained his fullest strength was sent forth. Bam! The devastating power tore through everything and slammed over, causing that punch of Lin Fan to disintegrate and disperse just like dust. Creak! Lin Fan's heart skipped a beat. He could feel that boundless strength ripping in through his right arm as though it wanted to infiltrate his body and lay ruins to it entirely. Sever! Without any hesitation, Lin Fan's right arm exploded off immediately. Oh, lost sheep in the seas of torments. Repent and you shall be saved. Even after severing his right arm, Lin Fan could not stop the relentless assault from the boundless future Buddha Lord as a Buddhist voice descended down from the sky and shrouded him within. This Buddhist voice possessed a power of purification within it, as though it wanted to purify Lin Fan. Damn it, Lin Fan yelped out in his heart. To think that this boundless future Buddha Lord would be this ruthless. You want to purify your daddy? You've got to be bloody dreaming. Lin Fan roared out. Great Buddha's light of purification. All living beings in the world carry a bodhisattva heart by nature. Within the Buddha race, the most profound mystic skill to cultivate of all was this right here. With a golden Buddha encircling him, bodhisattvas looked down onto the masses of the world. Boom! A brilliant golden light shone out, seeming bedazzling beyond comparison. An exclamation of astonishment rang out. Heavenly Lord Shinfeng is able to take in all the endless mystic skills. This is a mystic skill that stems from the Buddha race, and yet surpasses it. To think that a mere mortal such as yourself would know of this mystic skill. But, it's a pity that your cultivation of it is not perfect enough. The boundless future Buddha Lord exclaimed out before revealing a tone of disdain. You are the boundless future Buddha Lord. Lin Fan breathed out heavily as he raised his head and looked at the endless void. However, he could not catch sight of the boundless future Buddha Lord's figure. Mortal, I am the boundless future Buddha Lord. Repent, and you shall be saved. You have already descended into the boundless Avachi. Let me be the one to salvage you and bring you out of that sea of torment. The voice of the boundless future Buddha Lord sounded metallic. FCK your mother's A*s. Your daddy doesn't need the salvation of anyone. Lin Fan hollered out as the mythical parasol tree within his body rumbled out furiously, causing a boundless amount of life force to surge out. The severed right arm was regrown once again. Very well. Doesn't need the salvation of anyone. Your ancestor loves that reply of yours. The boundless future Buddha Lord is a despicable person to begin with. Ha ha ha, the selfless demon ancestor who was trapped in the sealed mountain roared out with laughter. HMPH, selfless Buddha ancestor, you have already been sealed here by me for dozens of thousands of years by now. But, you have yet to come to a realization. Unless you're waiting for me to kill you for real before you're pleased, are you? The boundless future Buddha Lord questioned harshly. Ha ha, don't come acting now, it's only now that I understood the truth. I suppose you aren't living too good of a life either, are you? Your ancestor has been wondering why you hadn't come to kill me for the past so many years. But now I know, it's because your true self can't head over, right? I presume that you must have suffered quite a consequential loss in that duel back then, The selfless demon ancestor burst out in laughter once more. It was as though the selfless demon ancestor had seen through every single trick and ploy of the boundless future Buddha Lord right now. HMPH, demon. The boundless future Buddha Lord scoffed out coldly. So what if I'm a demon? As the selfless demon ancestor, I've led a life of integrity, owning up to everything I do. If I killed your entire family, I would admit to it and not try to backstab anyone else. As for you, boundless future Buddha Lord, all you do is mess around with the hearts of others and deceive the masses. Look at those few who trusted you and ended up being scapegoats for you to sacrifice. But, it's a pity that your outcome will be nowhere decent either. Utmost heavenly Lord state, you will never be able to come close to it in your life. Ha ha ha, the selfless demon ancestor laughed out contemptuously. Shut up, the boundless future Buddha Lord felt his heart surge with fury. He did not want to waste his breath with the selfless demon ancestor any longer. Lin Fan stood there breathing in deeply while trying to recover the powers he had lost. Strong. This was truly, extremely strong. The boundless future Buddha Lord was so darned strong. Lin Fan was certain that he was no match for the former. His heart felt like being hit by a surging tidal wave, especially after hearing the words of the selfless demon ancestor. To think that this wasn't even the true body of the boundless future Buddha Lord. If the true body were to come forth, how strong would that be then? Perhaps, a single look would be enough for him to take down Lin Fan himself. He must absolutely not die here. Absolutely not. Heaven and earth smelt. Return. At this moment, Lin Fan shouted out, wanting to summon the heaven and earth smelt back to him. But, how could the boundless future Buddha Lord allow Lin Fan to do as he wished? He pointed out at the void with his finger. One flower, one world. Millions of flowers blossomed out and interlinked countless of worlds together. To think that the heaven and earth smelt would be trapped within them. Mortal, it's time for you to convert. The boundless future Buddha Lord sighed out gently as a boundless Buddha power surged forth from the heavens and crushed down toward Lin Fan. Convert your mother. Your daddy will never ever convert over to anyone. Lin Fan had not expected that things would turn out as such. Heaven and Earth Sutra. Lin Fan yelled out as the Heaven and Earth Sutra that was imprinted on his back burst forth with a blinding brilliance before transforming into a series of distorted text characters. Lad, if you don't wish to die, hold on steady. He will not be able to last for that long either. The enemy of an enemy was a friend after all, so the selfless demon ancestor advised out. Lin Fan was slightly taken aback for a moment. Without any hesitation, he channeled out his powers as the Heaven and Earth Sutra's text characters wrapped themselves around him and protected him thoroughly. When the boundless future Buddha Lord caught sight of those text characters, his face changed slightly. Just what are you to the Heavenly Lord Shinfeng? How are you in possession of the Heaven and Earth Sutra as well? Lin Fan laughed out coldly. If yours truly is your daddy, then Heavenly Lord Shinfeng must be your grandfather then. Courting death. The boundless future Buddha Lord bellowed out as his palm encompassed the entire sky. That golden Buddha palm suppressed every single thing in the area, and even an imprint of a swastika was visible on it. Boom! Quakes rippled out as the entire piece of sky seemed about to collapse at any moment. Ugh! Lin Fan spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. The Heaven and Earth Sutra wrapped around his body disappeared instantly. Even if this wasn't the true body of the boundless future Buddha Lord that had descended, it still wasn't something that Lin Fan could possibly handle. This boundless future Buddha Lord had surpassed everything he knew of. Given his current strength, there was no way he could possibly withstand it. The boundless future Buddha Lord came to a stop as though he had no more moves left. However, the frightening power of his was still gathered all over the place without disappearing, as though awaiting the final moment. Come at me if you've got the guts. If your daddy blinks even once, I'll take on your surname instead. Lin Fan shouted out. But at this moment, something that shocked Lin Fan happened. A Buddhist palm appeared between the heaven and earth all of a sudden. And on that Buddhist palm were two figures. Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu. Both of them were still in a daze right now. Weren't they doing all right outside just moments earlier? How were they sent here all of a sudden? Big bro. When Chu Zanyu caught sight of Lin Fan, he rushed up immediately. However, that Buddha palm closed up and trapped the two of them within the center of its palm. Do you wish for them to die? The boundless future Buddha Lord spoke up. Lin Fan had not expected that this boundless future Buddha Lord would be this devious. Boundless future Buddha Lord, you are as despicable as always. Why did the infinite Buddha ancestor decide to save you back then? I'm afraid he must be regretting immensely right now as well. You are a complete humiliation of his legacy. The selfless demon ancestor spoke up. Demon ancestor, you can shut up now. He is no longer existent. For all eternity from now on, he shall reincarnate within this Buddha heart of mine. The boundless future Buddha Lord laughed out. Mortal, lay down your sins and repent, and you shall become a Buddha. With that, I can spare your life. Otherwise, prepare to watch both of them vanishing into smoke. The boundless future Buddha Lord demanded. Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu had not understood what was going on at the start. But at this moment, it all became clear to them. Someone was using them to threaten their big bro. Lin Fan laughed out before turning around to glare at the boundless future Buddha Lord. You fear me? Fear, I am never afraid of anyone. The boundless future Buddha Lord replied. If you do not fear, there is no way you would resort to using such underhanded techniques. Lin Fan continued. Arg! Suddenly, Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu shrieked out tragically, it hurts. Lay down your sins and repent, and you shall become a Buddha. Otherwise, prepare to enter an endless state of reincarnation. The boundless voice of the boundless future Buddha Lord rang out once more as though this was his ultimatum right now. Lin Fan stood there and raised his head with an extremely sharp gaze. Even if you are stronger than me, so what? You still have to resort to these cheap tricks to get at me. I, Lin Fan, shall never ever be threatened by anyone. Chu Zhanyu. Jin Zhenggu. Lin Fan roared out. Big bro. The both of them looked at Lin Fan. I hope that you guys do not blame your big bro. After you guys die, even if I have to pay with my life, big bro will take revenge for you guys. Lin Fan screamed out madly. He knew that even if he were to bow down right now, his outcome would still be the same nevertheless. He might as well fight it out to the bitter end. Big bro, we are not afraid. I, Chuzanyu, had never once thought that I would ever turn this important one day. To think that I could be used as a hostage to threaten you with, big bro. I, Jin Zhengu, as well. Hee. At this moment, both Chuzanyu and Jin Zhengu started laughing out. It felt as though everything was worthwhile right now. That laughter of theirs bore no regrets in it, and came from the bottom of their hearts. Lin Fan looked over at the boundless future Buddha Lord before lowering his head. He took out the eternal axe and muttered in his mouth. Even if I have to pay with everything I have, I will kill you. That sharp gaze of Lin Fan turned frenzied all of a sudden as the powers within his body started boiling like scorching lava. Every single fragment of power within his body was converged onto this eternal axe at this moment. A brilliant glare flashed and extended out just like a banner. Every drop of essence blood within Lin Fan's body started exploding out before being converted into the most berserk power possible. I, Lin Fan, and everyone who follows me, are all dauntless beings unafraid of death. You, the boundless future Buddha Lord, you are nothing more than a clown in my eyes. Even if I can't kill you today, I will definitely kill you one fine day. Heavenly Lord and whatnot, through all ancient times and whatnot. Anyone who dares to sow a seed of vengeance with me, Lin Fan, shall fight with me till the bitter end. PSHEW. The bright light flashed out and transcended everything before bolting out and attacking the boundless future Buddha Lord. Courting death, the boundless future Buddha Lord snorted out coldly. Ha ha ha, lad, you better remember these words of yours. To the bitter end. At this moment, the selfless demon ancestor burst out into a wild laughter as the sealed mountain started to quake and tremble out violently. When the boundless future Buddha Lord sensed this, his heart skipped a beat as though he could not believe what was happening. Chapter 1024 Let us retreat. Chapter 1024, Let us retreat. Complete void of desires, mixed into a single body. November LBJNN. A voice that was more demonic than demons and viler than vile arose from within the sealed mountain. Slay, incinerate the pure essence energy of one's life. After being held captive here for dozens of thousands of years, the selfless demon ancestor's strength had long been suppressed down completely. This was especially the case after he was scammed by Lin Fan. Every bit of power that he had accumulated was basically expended entirely by now. But to think that he would be willing to expend that most precious essence energy of his very own life. This was something that was entirely unexpected. The demonic chi was torrential right now as a demonic intent that pierced through across all of ancient times streaked through the void before slaying out at the palm of the boundless future Buddha Lord. Thud, the palm was instantly sliced apart, and Chuzanyu and Jin Zhengu dropped down onto the ground below. Seizing the opportunity, Lin Fan roared out furiously as the eternal axe in his hands sliced through the entire void. Bringing every single last bit of energy with it, it cleaved out at the portion of the void where the boundless future Buddha Lord was present. Boom! The impact was colossal and frightening as the void currents went berserk and coiled the entire world. Damn it! Damn it! Selfless demon ancestor! To think that you would! The figure of the boundless future Buddha Lord turned into dust particles that scattered into the rest of the world and disappeared all of a sudden. Lin Fan breathed heavily. A single hand of his was pushing against the ground to support himself while sweat poured down his forehead continuously. That single strike earlier on had expended everything he had. Selfless demon ancestor, to think that you would actually help me. Lin Fan raised his head and looked over at the sealed mountain with an astonished look. He had not expected that at the very last moment, the selfless demon ancestor would have been the one to help him out. Otherwise, this would not have been the outcome right now. To the bitter end, the selfless demon ancestor within the sealed mountain said nothing else except for those 4 words. Thereafter, the entire place fell silent. Lin Fan did not know what the situation was right now. However, he did not care too much about it either. Chuzanyu and Jin Zhengu rushed up to him. Big bro, are you alright? The two of them were somewhat nervous, not knowing what was going on here. Big bro, how was my acting just now? Chuzanyu laughed out. Lin Fan was slightly stunned as he turned around and looked at Chuzanyu, acting. That's right, to think that that fella would dare to threaten our big bro. Does he not know that we have the damage-leaving pill left for us by our big bro? Chuzanyu said out as though he wasn't affected by the entire affair at all. When Lin Fan heard that, he could not help but give a bitter laugh. That was no act right there. It was really a life and death situation. If not for the selfless demon ancestor stepping in to help, this might not have been the outcome at all. Even that full-powered strike of his might not have done much damage to the boundless future Buddha Lord. Right now, Lin Fan did not have any power within his body anymore. Every cell of his was completely drained and empty. That was no act just now. That was a truly powerful being there. Lin Fan said. Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu were stumped for a moment before recovering to their senses, deciding not to think too much about it. Big bro, what should we do now then? Leave this place first. Lin Fan took in a deep breath as the mythical parasol tree churned out, sending a rush of life force to try and make up for the lost powers within his body. The heaven and earth smelt that had been traveling through the endless worlds finally appeared, and Lin Fan kept it within his storage. At the same time, he finally understood things. Seemed like there was a weakness to the heaven and earth smelt as well. One flower, one world. For someone to cast his heaven and earth smelt out into the infinite worlds out there, this was something that Lin Fan had experienced for the first time. However, what Lin Fan could not get was why the selfless demon ancestor would choose to help him at the very end. Was it all because he was determined to fight the boundless future Buddha Lord to the bitter end? But right now, even if the selfless demon ancestor had not rendered his assistance, Lin Fan was going to go at it with the boundless future Buddha Lord all the way as well. That Mother Sea King dog's tea. How dare he threaten yours truly? If Lin Fan did not take him down mercilessly, Lin Fan would not be able to live with himself. Taking one last look at the sealed mountain, Lin Fan did not hesitate anymore and took Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu to leave the place. Outside, Lin Fan sat down cross-legged. This time around, the losses were tremendous. It would be difficult if he wanted to recover in just a short while. Let us out, damn it, just who are you guys? At this moment, there were many beings of the demon Dao that were trapped in the heaven and earth net. The moment they came out of the place, they were caught by the net. Under the suppression of this supreme great immortal treasure, there was just no way they could get out at all. Big bro, what should we do about them? Chu Zanyu asked. Lin Fan looked at those people and pillaged them immediately, leaving them with no scraps at all. At the same time, to prevent unnecessary problems, he killed them as well. Right now, Lin Fan's cultivation state was already at golden immortal state. The strength of these guys was far too weak, and could not give him too many experience points. Before his powers had recovered, Lin Fan was sure that he would not bring forth unnecessary problems for himself. That was the reason why he killed them. And just as Lin Fan was prepared to focus all his attention toward his recovery, his face changed all of a sudden. Creak, the arm that he had regrown after severing it during the fight with the boundless future Buddha Lord suddenly had a strange change happening to it. A brilliant golden Buddhist light seeped out of Lin Fan's arm, somewhat covertly. At the same time, a grim voice rang out, Buddha is merciful. You have already relegated to a state of reincarnation. When Lin Fan heard this voice, he was immediately startled. To think that this boundless future Buddha Lord would be so difficult to deal with. Lin Fan had clearly sent him retreating, and yet he was able to leave this attack of his behind still. Boundless future Buddha Lord, you're bloody looking for death. Lin Fan raged out in his heart. Haha, I shall accompany you by your side till I descend once more. The voice of the boundless future Buddha Lord rang out. This was an unparalleled mystic skill that allowed him to reside within Lin Fan's body. No matter where Lin Fan would head to, he would always be under the control of this thing. Damn it, yours truly isn't an existence which you contained. Boundless dreamlands, triple lifetime reincarnation. Lin Fan roared out as a mysterious intent surged out from him ferociously. Chu Zanyu, Jin Zhenggu, the both of you cover me to leave this place. Lin Fan did not waste time in talking about useless stuff as he entered the triple lifetime reincarnation state immediately. Big bro, Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu were lost right now. But, by the time they came to a realization of the situation, they realized that their big bro had already closed his eyes shut. His aura was getting weaker gradually, as though he was slowly turning into a living dead man right now. Big bro, what's wrong with you? Chu Zanyu hurried over to Lin Fan's side while asking. If Big Bro wants us to get him out of this place, something must have happened. Let us leave, Jin Zhenggu said. Straight away, the rotund and plump Chu Zanyu piggybacked Lin Fan and looked around in all directions. That direction, I know it's safer there. Let us head over there, Chu Zanyu remarked. Jin Zhenggu nodded his head and retracted the heaven and earth net thereafter. He then dove into the void immediately and flew out into the distance. After flying and leaving the vicinity of that place earlier on, both of them landed down from the void in a huff. Let us walk for the remaining way. Otherwise, I'm afraid that things might get really dangerous up in the void. Chu Zanyu suggested. Yes, Jin Zhenggu nodded his head in agreement. He knew that if they had continued traveling through the void the entire time, there was a greater risk. After all, their strength wasn't all that strong. If they were to continue staying in the void and somehow bumped into a powerful being, they would definitely have their path forward blocked by the other party. By then, things would definitely get troublesome. Chapter 1025 I hope that's the case as well. Chapter 1025. I hope that's the case as well. Manwang border. Two figures snooped around the crevices of the place sneakily. This place is relatively safer. Even if we were to bump into beasts, we should be able to deal with them given our current strength. Even though Chu Zanyu's strength wasn't all that spectacular, he had quite a bit of street smarts to him. A place such as this would be safer than most other places for sure. Most of the time, martial artists would not bother to pass by the Manwang border, the main reason being that this place was pretty derelict and did not possess any good items. Highs, I wonder what's wrong with Big Bro, man. Jin Zhenggu remarked in worry. Don't worry about it, I'm sure Big Bro will be fine. I can still sense his heartbeat. He should just be fighting in some mysterious state of consciousness or something right now. Chu Zanyu replied. Actually, it was indeed as Chu Zanyu had guessed. Deploying the skill of the triple lifetime reincarnation, Lin Fan had entered a mysterious space to slay the consciousness that was left behind by the boundless future Buddha Lord. If he were to carry this consciousness along with him, he would not be able to eat at ease or sleep in peace. No matter what he did, he would not be able to feel settled at all. However, the strength of this boundless future Buddha Lord was strong indeed. Just this single bit of consciousness that he had left behind on Lin Fan's body had him finding it extremely sticky to deal with. It was extraordinary indeed. In the world outside, tens of days had already passed by. Following a safe path, Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu had come straight to this Manwang border. Watch out, there seems to be some activity up ahead. At this moment, Chu Zanyu remarked. Piggybacking Lin Fan, Chu Zanyu snuck around with Jin Zhenggu and hid behind a boulder. Seems like those people have bumped into the beasts. Jin Zhenggu said. There are so many of those beasts. Those people are most probably dead meat. Chu Zanyu replied. Should we save them? Jin Zhenggu asked. If this were in the past, they would definitely step in without hesitation given the current situation. However, with the state of affairs they were in right now, it had them thinking twice. No, forget about saving, let us just leave. Big Bro has entrusted his life to us. We must definitely not let him come to any harm. Chu Zanyu replied. He did not know when Big Bro was going to wake up. After all, it had been such a long time now. Look at the clothes of those people there. The imprint on it looks so familiar. Jin Zhenggu pointed over at the distance while saying. When Chu Zanyu turned over, his face changed slightly. How could this be? How could there be people from the Maple Forest City here? Chu Zanyu exclaimed out. On the back of the clothes worn by these people was imprinted a maple leaf. This was a city that Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu had once lived in. They were residents of a village under the city. However, the ruler of the city had a benevolent heart, and was extremely nice to the commoners as well. Back when Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu had yet to obtain their treasure, they had also received the grace from the ruler. I'll go and save them. You stay with Big Bro. Jin Zhenggu said. If it were anyone else, he would not have bothered about it. But, now that these people were related to him, Jin Zhenggu felt that it would not be right for him to not go and save them. Chu Zanyu pondered for a moment before nodding his head. All right. You head over then, but, if things are to get wrong, retreat immediately. Understood. Jin Zhenggu nodded his head, then took a stride forth and deployed his mystic skills toward the beasts. For these royalties of the Maple Forest City who were in the disadvantaged state earlier on, the entire scene took a turn right after the true immortal state powerful being, Jin Zhenggu, entered the fray. Feng Yanyan was a princess of the Maple Forest City with a pretty decent cultivation state as an immemorial ancient state middle-level being. At this moment, when she caught sight of Jin Zhenggu who was swimming through the beasts and able to wipe out a huge patch of them with every single punch he threw, she revealed a look of joy. It didn't take long before those beasts retreated. Jin Zhenggu did not say much as he turned around immediately. He wanted to leave the place with Chu Zanyu quickly. Please hold up. At this moment, Feng Yanyan finally spoke up. She had a nagging feeling that she shouldn't let someone as such leave just like this. Jin Zhenggu turned his head around and looked at Feng Yanyan. I wonder if there's anything else, princess. Feng Yanyan was startled before revealing out a smile. You know that I'm a princess. I am also someone of the Maple Forest City. Therefore, it's only natural that I know of the attire of the royalty from the Maple Forest City. Jin Zhenggu replied. Oh, so, you are one of our Maple Forest City's people. Then, why are you in such a rush to leave? You have just saved me along with everyone present here. You should return with us to the Maple Forest City so that I can thank you for this life-saving favor properly. Feng Yanyan continued. Jin Zhenggu had something that mattered more to him right now. I thank you for your intentions, princess. However, I have something important to attend to. Feng Yanyan smiled with a reply. She had noticed that Jin Zhenggu's sight had been fixated on the direction ahead of him for some time now. She then asked hurriedly, do you have companions there? Could they also be from the Maple Forest City? Feng Yanyan was a woman who looked exceptionally beautiful. Every single move and action she made brought with it a mesmerizing charm. For someone such as Jin Zhenggu who had never once tasted the flavors of a woman, he naturally got a little shy in the face of it. Eventually, he nodded his head in reply. Yes, Jin Zhenggu nodded his head. But, he did not want to linger any further, so he said, farewell, princess. Hold on, how could Feng Yanyan let such a powerful being go just like that? She naturally had to try her best and retain him. Please hold up. How about bringing me along to take a look? Furthermore, if there are any issues, I can render my assistance as well. Eventually, Jin Zhenggu could only bring the princess over to the side of Chu Zanyu. When Chu Zanyu caught sight of Feng Yanyan, he put up his guard in his heart. Even though this was the princess of the Maple Forest City, he had an incredibly huge responsibility right now. His big bro was still on his back at this moment. He must not let his guard down at all cost. What's wrong with him? Feng Yanyan asked. For a moment or so, Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu truly did not know how to reply. Eventually, they could only say, our big bro has been injured. We're taking him away from this place. How about following us back to the Maple Forest City? It will be safer along the way with us as well. Once we reach the Imperial City, I will definitely find the best doctors to try and give him treatment. Feng Yanyan suggested. Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu exchanged glances with one another before going into a hushed discussion. They felt that this was truly going to be the safer option. If they reached the Maple Forest City, they shouldn't be meeting any outsiders. At the same time, with the protection of the Imperial City, they would definitely feel more at ease. We'll have to trouble the princess then. Eventually, Chu Zanyu nodded his head in agreement. Feng Yanyan glanced at the person behind Chu Zanyu's back as her eyes shone with a curious expression. By the looks of him on the surface, he did not seem like he was injured. However, his aura was extremely unstable. It was existent at times and totally invisible at others. This was strange. On the carriage, N.O. Vel B. in .C. Ohm. Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu guarded by the side of Lin Fan. No matter what they did, they would always ensure that there was one person beside him at least. Big bro, when are you going to wake up? When Chu Zanyu looked at Lin Fan, he could not help but mumble out to himself. On another carriage, princess, the background of those two is unknown. There's no need to rope them in, is there? An elderly man asked. Feng Yanyan's expression was grim right now as she lowered her head slightly. Right now, the Maple Forest City is faced with problems internally as well as externally. If I can pull in two powerful beings, it would be extremely beneficial for the Maple Forest City as well. This time around, our negotiations for peace were rejected. I'm afraid things are only going to get more troublesome from now on. The elderly man said. Let's just do the best we can. Feng Yanyan sighed out, evidently fatigued. She then asked, can you tell what's wrong with the man they are carrying along? The elderly man shook his head. No. He just seems like a living dead man. His aura is detectable at times, and non-existent at others. He seems to have taken a huge blow. However, both of them are sticking by his side loyally. Their natures should be pretty decent. Feng Yanyan chuckled out, I'm a good judge of character. They are both people of the Maple Forest City. I'm sure they will help us tide through this trial. I hope that's the case as well. The elderly man replied. Chapter 1026 5 Chi True Demonic Skill. Chapter 1026 5 Chi True Demonic Skill. A few days later, Lin Fan had yet to wake up from his slumber. Right now, he was fighting against the strongest enemy within the loops of reincarnation. Within a patch of nothingness, Lin Fan stood upright. Before him was a gigantic golden Buddha that was emanating a boundless might. The light at the back of his head was exceptionally blinding. It was like the scorching sun that shone down on the entire world, purifying the heaven and earth. This was the light of Buddhist nature, an intrinsic light which reveled and grew in its own power. Everything about it was at a state of completion, with no shortcomings and obstacles in its way. It was free. If this were the true infinite Buddha ancestor, the light of Buddhist nature would naturally be able to shine down on the entire world and permeate through all worldly desires and lies. But, Because this was the light of Buddhist nature from the boundless future Buddha Lord, it was filled with a crafty and sinister nature, placing its priority in bewitching the masses. Your sins are deep, and you are shrouded by the fires of evil karma. At the same time, you are caged by the three poisons: desire, anger, and foolishness. The only way for you to have hope for life is if you place down the butcher's knife and convert under me. The boundless future Buddha Lord spoke up. That solemn face of his emitted a radiant golden gleam. This was especially the case for that swastika symbol on his forehead, which further emanated a boundless power. The boundless future Buddha Lord could peer through the future and seize control of it, dodging everything ranging from karma and retribution. Within the Buddha race of the endless mainland, he was one of the top 3 powerful beings. Bullshit. Yours truly is filled with poison from my 5 viscera and 6 bowels. Every single being in this entire world is tainted. That is what nature is all about, what the true world is. Your sort of seeing through everything is nothing more than a form of escapism. And yet, you dare to speak of teachings to yours truly. Lin Fan roared out. At this moment, Lin Fan was no longer expending his powers for this. He was just at an optimum state of being right now. Boom! The tremendous power gathered in thousands of mystic skills of martial arts. In the blink of an eye, all of these mystic skills were deployed. One after another, they turned into a series of mystic skill dragons that coiled around the entire void. A single palm to shock the heavens. N-O-V-E in .C Om. A single palm to rattle the earth. Yours truly is the true master of all. Lin Fan roared out as he entered a massacre against the boundless future Buddha Lord straightaway. In this place, Lin Fan was omnipotent. But, it was the same case for the boundless future Buddha Lord as well. Maple Leaf City. To think that after all this time, we would return to where we came from. When Chu Zanyu looked at this familiar city, he could not help but lament out. That's right. Jin Zhenggu nodded his head. Everything here was ever so familiar. At the city entrance, when the guards saw that it was the princess's convoy that had returned, they naturally let down their guards. I remember that there were no victims of disasters or anything like that in the Maple Leaf City back when we had left, right? Chu Zanyu looked out and saw many refugees with yellowed skin and tattered clothes sitting on the city walls, their faces filled with a look of despair. When Jin Zhenggu caught sight of this, he turned around at Feng Yanyan questioningly. He did not know just what had happened here. Highs. Feng Yanyan shook her head helplessly. In the recent years, there have been many wars and stuff that happened in the Maple Forest City. The areas at the borders of the city were all destroyed. These people are all refugees who escaped over from there. I've already arranged for people to take care of them. I'm sure we will be able to settle them down before long. Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu were not people without knowledge of the world. When they heard the words of Feng Yanyan, they understood the things as well. The martial artists who were well versed in mystic skills of the martial arts would be satisfied as long as they could achieve a higher cultivation state. But, these commoners could only endure the descent of calamity and tragedy. The two of them exchanged glances with one another as they understood in their hearts why the princess had wanted them to come over to the Maple Forest City. She wanted to seek their help. At this moment, both of them hesitated. How could they do this? They had to ensure that their big bro was safe. With that, how could they be embroiled in this? Thinking that, the both of them were stuck in a dilemma. When Feng Yanyan caught sight of the expression of the both of them, she spoke up. The reason why I invited the both of you sirs back is that I hope that you guys can lend us your assistance. When Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu heard that, their hearts froze. Indeed, it was as they had thought. What should we do? Jin Zhenggu did not know what he should do at this point. Maple Forest City was their hometown. Now that they were here and had seen the state it was in right now, they knew that even if they wanted to leave, no one would stop them. They would just harbor the unwillingness in their own hearts. Chu Zanyu did not say anything, but eventually nodded his head silently. Princess, we'll agree to it. However, you must first get us to a spacious place. Chu Zanyu said. The moment Feng Yanyan heard those words, she leapt with joy. Sure. That expression of hers was emotional beyond anything else. She knew that the two men before her were truly willing to stay now. Maple Forest City had true immortal state powerful being. But, there was only one of them, and it was this person beside her. If there were 3 true immortal state powerful beings in the Maple Forest City, they would definitely have more confidence in their ability to protect themselves. And, the reason why Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu wanted a spacious place was so that they could build an underground secret chamber to settle Lin Fan down within. If there were truly any hiccups, they had to ensure that their big bro was protected still. 3 years later, Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu had already resided within the Maple Forest City for 3 years now. At the same time, they had become the pillars of support for the Maple Forest City. Any intruders they met with were all sent retreating under the might of Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu. Even if they met a powerful being, both of them used their supreme great immortal weapon, the Heaven and Earth Net. Therefore, there was practically no one who was their match. Time and again, they sent the enemies retreating. At the same time, staying in the Maple Forest City year after year had both of them growing even deeper feelings toward this hometown of theirs. At this moment, Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu looked at Lin Fan, who was lying on a bed, and let out a disappointed expression. It has been 3 years, and Big Bro has yet to wake up. Jin Zhenggu said. Highs, if only we knew what was going on, that'd be nice. Big Bro is really way too irresponsible. Couldn't he at least tell us just how long he was going to sleep for? Chu Zanyu remarked as well. Let's go, we don't even know if we can make it back this time around at all. Jin Zhenggu continued. Chu Zanyu nodded his head before pressing down on a switch. With that, the bed before him gradually descended into the ground deeper by each moment until it disappeared from sight completely. Chu Zanyu then took out broken rocks one after another from his storage ring to seal the entrance of the secret chamber tightly, such that it looked the same as the outside world's surroundings. If both of them did not lead the way, no one would be able to tell that there was a secret chamber at this place. After that, Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu flew into the void. In the past 3 years, both of their cultivation states had improved tremendously, and they were now true immortal full cultivation state beings. They were the 2 most powerful beings in the entire Maple Forest City, and were respected by all the people here. In the hearts of many commoners, Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu were their protectors. At the main hall of the Maple Forest City, with the help of Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu, Feng Yanyan had managed to eradicate the issues they had within the city internally and taken over as the ruler. As for Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu, they became the top-tiered existences of the city. Is everything settled properly? Feng Yanyan's face was filled with some slight worries. But, when she looked at Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu, it was still a face that had immense gratitude on it nevertheless. It was because these two had helped the Maple Forest City to defend against countless powerful beings back then that the city was able to get to where it was today. Yes, Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu nodded their heads. Feng Yanyan knew that the big bro of these two had been deep in slumber for a long time now. She had heard that the strength of this big bro of theirs was extremely formidable. If he were to awaken, any issues would become insignificant. However, she bore a skeptical attitude toward this fact. Set off. At this moment, there was already a huge army that was gathered outside the Maple Forest City. The aura of this army was far from ordinary, bearing with them an extremely sharp killing chi. This was a killing chi that had an extraordinary impact. It was absolutely not something that ordinary people could possess. In the depths of this army, senior brother, you're full of ideas indeed. To think that you would seek out the massacring chi, despair chi, fright chi, calamity chi, and killing chi from inciting the wars of mere mortals. With the 5 chi gathered, the 5 chi true demonic skill we've been cultivating will be able to break through to the next level and reach a full cultivation state. A malevolent-looking man sniggered. HMPH. For all these years, we've caused so many wars to break out, and have long gathered a robust amount of the 5 chi. From this day forth, this Maple Forest City shall vanish into smoke entirely. However, senior brother, I've heard that the 2 people from the Maple Forest City possess an immortal weapon with them. Could it be that you have found some way to counter them or something, senior brother? The man asked. That's of course. When the time comes, you will find out for yourself. Chapter 1027 We're about to be whacked to death. Chapter 1027. We about to be whacked to death. Outside the city, when Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu caught sight of this scene, they felt their hearts skip a beat. Something's wrong. The soldiers of this gigantic army before their eyes emitted a strange aura. This was an aura that shouldn't be present on mere mortals. In fact, there was even a killing demonic god formed in the void just from the aura emanating from these soldiers. Feng Yanyan felt her heart tense up at the sight of this as well. She then looked over at the both of them. How is the aura of these soldiers from the Yu country so formidable? Be careful, there must be some problems within. Chu Zanyu warned cautiously. Within the deepest parts of the Yu army, he could sense 2 incredibly strong auras. At the same time, these were 2 auras that he was familiar with. They must have fought with one another before. Eventually, the Heaven and Earth Net had caused the other party to retreat the last time. Ha ha ha. At this moment, a frenzied laughter rang out from within the Yu army. Two figures floated up into the void and glared over at Chu Zanyu and the others. Chu Zanyu, Jin Zhenggu, both of you had better come and prepare yourselves for death. Coming forth along with that berserk voice was a boundless power that rattled the entire world. The power of just that voice alone caused a shockwave to sweep across the soldiers of the Maple Forest City. Chu Zanyu took a single step forth and dissipated the shockwave with his palm, to think that it would be you too. Of course, it has been a couple of months since that battle from back then. Today, along with my junior brother, we are here to give a test to the strength of the two of you. Luo Li roared out in laughter madly. Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu took a step forth and stood tall in the void. They then whispered to one another, "Watch out. Those two fellas are not our match at all." But, the fact that they dare to head here today must mean that they've got some sort of a backing up their sleeves. HMPH. The U Army wants to invade our Maple Forest City. As long as the two of us brothers are around, none of you shall succeed. Jin Zhenggu roared out. Is that so? Luo Li chuckled out softly before casting his glance over at Feng Yanyan. The ruler of the Maple Leaf City is truly decent indeed. You will be more than enough for me to take home and use as a slave. Ha ha. The sinister laughter was relentless as he swept his robes aside. Go. As though they were boosted with some mysterious aura, the U Army roared out endlessly while rushing out like human-shaped beasts. Pishu, courting death, heaven and earth net. Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu roared out as the powers within their bodies rumbled out. The heaven and earth net floated out gently in the void and covered the entire sky in an instant, enveloping everyone from the gigantic army of the U country together. This was the might of a supreme great immortal weapon. Since both of them were at the true immortal state full cultivation level, the might of the supreme great immortal weapon was raised as well. Even though they still could not unleash its full potential, this might here was not something that the Luo brothers could deal with at all. Ha ha, do you guys think that we've got nothing up our sleeves anymore? Luo Li burst out laughing before he turned over to the void and shouted out, "Old Master Infernal Requiem, please strike out." At this point, Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu were completely taken aback. Fabulous. It's a supreme great immortal weapon indeed. In the hands of those two, the immortal treasure's potential is completely being wasted. It's only in the hands of your old master Infernal Requiem that it can unleash its fullest might. A chilling aura surged through the entire void. An elderly man who was standing atop a dragon formed from ominous chi flitted over and appeared in the void. Old Master Inferno Requiem. When Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu caught sight of this elderly man, their faces changed completely. This was a reputable old master who was a golden immortal being. Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu had not expected that something as such would happen. To think that the Luo brothers would be able to invite over such a horrifying existence. At this moment, Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu were not the only astounded ones. Even Feng Yanyan's face was aghast. The elderly man who was always by Feng Yanyan's side felt his sweat pouring down his back as well. Old Master Inferno Requiem is a golden immortal being. Why is he interfering in the affairs of mere mortals? The elderly man asked in horror. This supreme great immortal weapon shall belong to me then. The old Master Inferno Requiem burst out into laughter as he opened his palm wide, causing the laws of a golden immortal to ripple over. This was a supreme great immortal weapon, something that was extraordinary. If both of them had the strength of mystic immortal state, perhaps even the old Master Inferno Requiem might find this getting a little tricky. But, things were different right now. Both of them were merely true immortal state beings. If they wanted to protect this supreme great immortal weapon, they would truly be dreaming. Ha ha, your debts are here. Luo Li burst out in laughter as he slashed out at Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu. At this moment within the secret chamber, there was already a deeply dug underground abyss right now. A bed was laid there, ever so eye-catching to look at. The figure on the bed was motionless as though it was a living dead man right there. But just at this moment, that motionless figure jerked both his eyes wide open all of a sudden and shouted out with vulgarities. FC King Hell, this boundless future Buddha Lord is really way too bloody devious. To think that a mere strain of his consciousness was able to trap yours truly for such a long time. Lin Fan cussed out. However, he was extremely pleased with the end result. After he took down the consciousness of the boundless future Buddha Lord, Lin Fan gained an incredible amount of experience points. But all of a sudden, Lin Fan was stunned. He had discovered that something was not right with his surroundings. Where in the bloody world is yours truly? Why the hell is this place pitch black? Lin Fan was taken aback. Gathering his powers, he illuminated the entire place. But when he caught sight of his surroundings, Lin Fan was stunned. Walls, abyss. Lifting his head, there seemed to be a switch of some sort above him. Boom! The ground quaked out as a figure bolted up from underground. Where is this place? Where did those two little bros of mine die off to? To think that they would dare to keep their old bro underground. Did they really think that yours truly was dead? Lin Fan cussed out in his heart. This was getting bloody awkward right now. He then checked out his surroundings. This place was slightly more foreign. He did not know where he was at all. He then floated up into the void and took in everything around him. For a moment, he was absolutely bewildered. Why was he in the middle of a city right now? At this moment, Lin Fan felt that there were some reverberations of powers being generated up ahead. He did not know what was going on at all. When he stepped out, he found a figure running off furiously on the ground. Lin Fan landed down immediately and grabbed hold of the person while asking, "Oi, where is this place?" When the person who was sprinting caught sight of Lin Fan, he was stunned. This is the Maple Forest City. There's a war happening outside already. And, we seem to be on the losing end. Hurry up and run. Maple Forest City, just where in the world was this place? Lin Fan was befuddled at this point. Where in the world did Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu die off to? They couldn't have cast him away because they thought he was too troublesome to deal with, could they? But, he took a look at the clothes on his body. They were neat and proper as though they had just been cleaned recently. Seemed like there had been people taking care of him. Forget it, those can wait, time to check out just what is happening outside first. Lin Fan dove into the void and headed over to the direction where all the commotion was happening. If Lin Fan had known that the boundless future Buddha Lord had FCKED up 3 entire years of his time, he would have scolded the hell out of that piece of sh*t. On the battlefield, bam, bam, just like bullets, Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu were sent flying and digging straight into the ground. Haha, without the supreme grade immortal weapon, you guys are nothing but ants. The Luo brothers laughed out wildly. They opened their mouths sighed and sucked in, taking in all the 5 chis that were formed in the surroundings into their tummies. Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu struggled to stand still. Spitting out a mouthful of fresh blood, they looked up into the void. The supreme grade immortal weapon was being held down by the old master Inferno Requiem entirely, and refused to listen to their commands. When Feng Yanyan caught sight of this, her face was filled with a look of despair as well. It was over. It was truly over this time around. But just at this moment, a mighty voice boomed out of the void. November LBJNN. Why did you two fellas bury yours truly underground? When Chu Zanyu heard this voice, that frightfully pale face of his suddenly turned ecstatic. He yelled out, "Big bro! You're finally awake, hurry and come save us. We're about to be whacked to death by others." What? Who bloody has the guts to whack my little bros? The moment Lin Fan heard this, he was pissed. Bloody hell, wasn't this just not giving yours truly any face at all? When the despairing Feng Yanyan looked up into the void, her face turned into one of confusion. Just which ant is this yet again? How dare? Luo Li raised his head and barked out. But, before he could finish with his words, a gigantic palm strike hurled out at his face. Courting death, Lin Fan snorted out coldly. Bam! An explosion rang out as Luo Li turned into a puddle of blood instantly, dying in a worse way than he could have ever expected. From the start till his end, he didn't even have a chance to react at all. At this moment, Feng Yanyan was just dumbfounded. Chapter 1028 A Little Worth in You. Chapter 1028. A Little Worth in You. What's this sh*t? Lin Fan made a domineering entrance as his powers rumbled out. As he slapped out with his palm, his powers transformed into a gigantic palm that turned that overbearingly arrogant and cocky Luo Li into a puddle of blood instantly, the same way he would swat down a fly. The strength of this Luo Li was pretty decent. Not only that, he had cultivated an unparalleled mystic skill, the 5 Chi true demonic skill. This was an extremely difficult skill to cultivate, and would require the power of the 5 Chi. As for the power of the 5 Chi, it would only be formed under fixed circumstances by the living beings of the world. In the case of Luo Li's group, they chose to cultivate the lowest form of the 5 Chi, which is to utilize the 5 Chi of mere mortals to aid his cultivation. If they could invoke wars between powerful beings, the 5 Chi emanated out would be even more horrifying. In the end, that would cause their 5 Chi true demonic skill to turn extremely heaven-revolting. But, given the strength of Luo Li and his group, how could they have the capabilities to incite any form of war between powerful beings? sh*t like this isn't worth my time. Lin Fan stood in the void and spread out his palm, taking in the aura that was emanated out of Luo Li and gathering it in his palm. Sensing it, he could only let out a look of disdain. Simple and plain 5 Chi, the lowest form of all kinds of 5 Chi. Bam! Lin Fan gripped his fingers together, exploded the chi immediately. Big bro, Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu were both so emotional right now that tears were almost flowing down their faces. Now that their big bro ha awakened, their lives from this point forth would definitely be much more relaxed. Now, you both fellas. Why did you bury me underground? Lin Fan snorted out coldly. However, he did not have the intention of blaming both of them. Looking at everything before him right now, he already knew what was happening. Big bro, it's a long story. Both Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu sighed out as though they had a lot of troubles in their minds but did not where they should start from. Alright, that'll do. Settle the situation here first before talking about it. Lin Fan's gaze was focused ahead as he took a step forth. Luo Li's junior brother stood in the void with his eyes wide open like those of a cow. He was shivering uncontrollably as sweat poured down his forehead like beads of water. His mind was entirely filled with the scene from earlier on. His senior brother had simply been slapped to death by this person, leaving behind not even a single scrap. Just who in the world was this person? How could he be this formidable? At this moment, Lin Fan appeared beside him. It seemed as though even time stood still in the void right now. The only things that could be heard were saliva being gulped down and the bobbing of one's throat. An aura of imminent death shrouded him as his hands and feet turned icy cold. It was as though he had just met the most horrifying existence in this entire world. Aren't you quite the brazen one? Lin Fan stood beside him and spoke with a soft, calm tone that was neither happy nor angry. However, there was an implied meaning hidden within those words. You think you're really strong, aren't you? The junior brother felt his throat clamp up for a moment as his mouth went dry. Both his hands were trembling right now as he truly wanted to resist. However, for some reason, it felt as though his entire body was being rooted on the spot by some ridiculous aura, rendering him totally immobile. I am. He wanted to declare the name of his sect so that the other party would fear him. However, before he was even finished with his words, an extremely sharp sword will pierce through his body. I don't care which sect you are from. None of that matters to me. Lin Fan spoke up indifferently as his sword will streak throughout the entire place, mincing the ant beside him into shreds immediately. In fact, even the laws of true immortals within his body were shattered before turning into pure powers and fusing back into the heaven and earth. He was simply way too weak, so Lin Fan gained no experience points at all. With the death of the Luo brothers, a series of black mist floated out from amidst those soldiers of the Yu country who were just like wild beasts right now. It was as though this black mist was some sort of a demonic god that was possessing them, now evaporating into nothingness. As though they had just lost every last bit of strength they possessed, those soldiers from the Yu country collapsed onto the ground, crippled. Lin Fan lowered his head and took a glance while revealing a smile of contempt on his lips. To think that they would resort to such cheap and underhanded tricks. He had already seen through the fact that those two were using mystic skills to invoke the potential within these mortal soldiers. As a result, their essence, spirit, and vitality burned up furiously before being expended completely, causing them to lose their life force as well. This was an evil mystic skill. However, it seemed as though the Luo brothers did not have the intention of letting these soldiers of the Yu country head back alive in the first place. They must have wanted them all to die here and be converted into the purest form of 5 chi to supply their cultivation. But at this moment, the one who was the most taken aback was Feng Yanyan. She knew that the big bro of these two had been in slumber the entire time. By now, it had been a full 3 years. Initially, she had thought that the reason why he was in slumber was that he must have received some substantial mental blow or something. With that, she didn't think that he could be that strong either. But at this moment, she truly understood the reality. How was this even strong anymore? This was plain horrific. Your big bro. Feng Yanyan did not know what to say any longer. Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu let out a proud smile. Our big bro is extremely strong. With him around, there's nothing to fear at all. This was an unshakable trust. This was the case even with the heaven and earth net being in possession of the old master Inferno Requiem. Even under such circumstances, they weren't fearful in the least bit in their hearts. With their big bro around, the only path awaiting that fella was that of death. When she looked up at that upright figure in the void, Feng Yanyan's eyes shone with disbelief. Unimaginable. This was truly unimaginable. At this moment, Lin Fan looked up at the old master Inferno Requiem, who was in the midst of cultivating the heaven and earth net, as he let out a slight grin. Old man, are you trying to cultivate the treasure of my little bros? Lin Fan asked. The old master Inferno Requiem had long noticed what was happening on the scene. However, it did not bother him in the least bit. The fact that the Luo brothers were both killed wasn't something that had him surprised. He was a golden immortal. Killing those two trashes was something he himself could do in a split second. HMPH. I only want this supreme great immortal weapon. I will not bother and interfere with you guys. If you know what's good for you, you had better scram off quickly. Otherwise, once I'm done with cultivating this supreme great immortal weapon, I'll take you guys to warm my hands. The old Master Inferno Requiem barked out. Ha ha ha, Lin Fan roared out laughing, to think that a mere golden immortal state lower level being would dare to be so cocky. If I were to let someone like you get to golden immortal full cultivation state or even higher levels, I'm afraid the world wouldn't have enough space to hold the ego of an old fart like you by then, would it? Junior. Courting death. The old Master Inferno Requiem was enraged as he slapped down with his palm, sending forth an unparalleled mystic skill bursting rampantly. Heavenly Inferno Requiem Frost. His aura burst forth as an ominous chi blanketed the entire world. At the same time, the void seemed to be filling up with a chilling aura instantly. Wherever it passed by, everything present froze up. Even the spirit chi itself was being locked in ice at this moment. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. An extremely bone-chilling aura surged through the heaven and earth. This was an unparalleled mystic skill that could freeze people into ice cubes while sending an ominous chi into their bodies. This was no ordinary mystic skill, it was something that only golden immortal beings could deploy. If not for the fact that Lin Fan was around here, Chu Zanyu and the others would have long taken in the ominous chi into their bodies. With that, the chilling aura would have frozen them up entirely, turning them into living dead men. Some capabilities there, Lin Fan chuckled out. However, in an instant, his lips curled up slightly, but, it's a pity that it's way too far from enough. Pishu. Dimensional mystic skill. With a single flash, Lin Fan appeared in the face of old Master Inferno Requiem. When the old master, who was busy cultivating the heaven and earth net with his entire force, caught sight of this figure that appeared before him, he was stunned before exclaiming out in astonishment, "You!" Lin Fan pointed out with his finger, which seemed as though it was that of a god. Golden immortal lower level, I guess you've got a little worth to you. Lin Fan smiled out calmly. However, from the old Master Inferno Requiem's perspective, that casual finger was way too horrifying, making him tremble in fear. Chapter 1029 One hell of a loss. Chapter 1029, One hell of a loss. Lin Fan's strength right now was far stronger than 3 years ago. And, this was all thanks to the boundless future Buddha Lord. During the 3 years he had spent in that space, Lin Fan dueled fiercely with the boundless future Buddha Lord. Not only were countless mystic skills of martial arts deployed, it also allowed Lin Fan to cultivate them to a pinnacle state. Furthermore, when he defeated the boundless future Buddha Lord eventually, that consciousness of his had given Lin Fan an extraordinary amount of experience points. Even though he had only pointed out with a single finger, that was something that possessed the utmost will state of the Sword Tao. This was even sicker after Lin Fan had fused all of his comprehension together into a single sword will. Even the top-tiered mystic skills of the Heaven and Earth sect would definitely not be a match for this single-finger move. You, the old Master Inferno Requiem let out a look of shock. It seemed as though all the powers in his body had been severed by this single sword will, causing a vacuum to appear. With that, all his powers seemed to be frozen, as he could not work them at all. Seizing this moment, Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu snatched back the heaven and earth net instantly. Ding! The finger was pointed on the forehead of the old Master Inferno Requiem, for whom, this was something extremely horrifying, causing sweat to pour heavily. Wait up! The old Master Inferno Requiem spoke up as his eyes was filled with an endless amount of fear. He had discovered that the strength of this guy before him was far from ordinary. Even he was not a match for this person at all. I can't wait. Lin Fan's lips curled into a grin as he pointed out his finger. Like water ripples, circles started spreading out layer after another. The old Master Inferno Requiem's eyes opened wide as his body shivered slightly as a sword will pierced out of Lin Fan's finger, penetrating right into his body. No one else knew what was going on. When Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu looked at what was happening up in the void, their hearts were filled with bewilderment. They did not know what their big bro was doing with this old Master Inferno Requiem. But by the looks of it, it seemed extremely strange. Creak! All of a sudden, a clean, crisp sound rang through the void. It sounded just like glass breaking, clean and brittle, yet ever so chilling to hear. How could this be? I, the old Master Inferno Requiem, have reigned over the world throughout my entire life. How can I possibly fall here? The heart of the old Master Inferno Requiem was filled with indignance. He was a golden immortal being who had reigned supreme over the entire world with a lifetime of groundbreaking cultivation. The only reason he had come here this time around was that he had heard about a supreme-grade immortal weapon from Luo Li. But, to think that he would have to fall here. Lin Fan placed his hands behind his back and glanced over at the old Master Inferno Requiem, then turned around to head over to the side of Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu. Big bro, Chu Zanyu looked over at the old Master Inferno Requiem up in the void nervously. He did not know what was going on right now. Crack, just as he was feeling perplexed over the situation, the face of the old Master Inferno Requiem suddenly started shattering apart into shards that disappeared into the void one after another. The body of his that was hidden beneath his clothes started breaking apart in the same way. Thereafter, an infinite amount of sword wills burst forth from his body, filling the world with a blinding brilliance. The body of the old Master Inferno Requiem was just like a supernova right now. The light was so blinding that no one dared to look at it directly. Bam! An explosion boomed out in the next instant, and that malevolent-looking old Master Inferno Requiem vanished just like smoke. Ding! Congratulations on killing Golden Immortal lower-level Old Master Inferno Requiem. Ding! Experience points plus. Ding! Obtained unparalleled mystic skill, Heavenly Inferno Requiem Frost. Lin Fan had not expected that a mystic skill would pop up after the explosion. He then took it over in his hands. This mystic skill wasn't weak at all. However, it was just that the old Master Inferno Requiem's strength wasn't all that great, and on top of that, he had met with a sicko like Lin Fan. If it were an ordinary person who had encountered the old Master Inferno Requiem, their only outcome would most probably have had been death. After Lin Fan learned the mystic skill, yet another mystic skill rune appeared within his body. As he flipped his palm around, a frosty air rumbled out, freezing even space itself. This was finally an unparalleled mystic skill that he could take out to use. To think that the old Master Inferno Requiem would have died just like that. When Feng Yanyan caught sight of everything before her, she was so astonished that she no longer knew what to say. Lin Fan looked at Feng Yanyan and the elderly man beside her, feeling a little confused. He did not know who these two were, or how Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu got to know of them. Seeing the look on his face, Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu relayed to Lin Fan straight away everything that had happened in the past few years. The moment Lin Fan heard everything, he froze up. 3 years. That's right, big bro. You had fainted over for 3 years already. Chu Zanyu said. I'm going to FCK that bloody darned boundless future Buddha Lord. To think that he would FC King steal away from me 3 years of my time. Now that Lin Fan realized he was asleep for a whole 3 years, his heart burned with an endless rage. This was too darned inhumane. At the start, Lin Fan was still feeling that he had earned by destroying that consciousness of the boundless future Buddha Lord. But now that he knew he had fainted over for 3 years, he nearly spat out a mouthful of old blood. Bloody hell, he had wasted yet another 3 years. If he had spent those 3 years on killing powerful beings, how formidable would his cultivation state have been right now? Perhaps, he might have even reached that heavenly lord state or whatnot by now. Lin Fan was filled with an immense regret. In fact, he even had an impulse to go kill the boundless future Buddha Lord mercilessly. But then, he merely sighed out to vent the unhappiness in his heart. Forget it, forget it. Now that things had already come to this state, what else could he say? Thank you, Feng Yanyan spoke up. In the past, she had the courage to try and retain Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu. But, facing Lin Fan right now, she did not harbor such thoughts at all. That was because she knew that this person before her wasn't someone who could be restrained by a small little city such as the Maple Forest City. Lin Fan nodded his head without saying anything more. Looking at how this man was so cold to her, Feng Yanyan felt a little awkward in her heart. However, she did not dare to feel any bit of displeasure at all. Even though she was the ruler of the Maple Forest City, she knew that she was nothing but an ant in the eyes of such a powerful being. Now, what about you guys? Are you guys going to continue following me or will you stay in this Maple Forest City? Lin Fan asked. Of course, we're following you, big bro. Now that you have slain that Luo Li, this Maple Forest City will be safe from now on, big bro. Chu Zanyu chuckled out. That's right, the Maple Forest City of today has the capabilities to protect itself. In the past 3 years that we've been here, the two of us had set up a martial arts school. Even though it's not at a point where everyone is learning martial arts, there are still plenty of pretty capable students. Jin Zhenggu added on. N-O-V-E in .c ohm. Lin Fan chuckled out, to think that both of you would have done so many things in the past 3 years. However, rest at ease. Since this is your hometown, I will naturally not sit idly by either. At that moment, Lin Fan flipped out his palm, deploying the source sealing technique instantly. As he drew a line with his finger, a sword will was infused within. After the deployment of the source sealing technique, the entire Maple Forest City was enveloped up within it. The sword will that was infused in was even Lin Fan's personal one. This was a sword will that could kill even golden immortal powerful beings. He reckoned that this should be powerful enough. I've already laid down my seal at this place. Even if you guys were to meet with enemies in the future, there shouldn't be too many problems. Lin Fan said. Thank you, big bro. Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu could naturally sense how formidable the formation enveloping the Maple Forest City was. Even if it were them, there was probably no way they could possibly withstand it. Feng Yanyan was especially grateful. If she could, she would even offer herself in marriage. However, she knew that she wasn't worthy of Lin Fan. Big bro, where are we headed off to now? Chu Zanyu asked. Lin Fan hesitated for a moment. Honestly, he wasn't too clear about where they should go now himself. We'll return to the sect first. It has been 3 years since I left. They might have even presumed me dead by now. Lin Fan said. Chapter 1030 Could he have defected? Chapter 1030, Could he have defected? Lin Fan brought Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu to leave the Maple Forest City, heading in the direction of the Heaven and Earth sect. After leaving the sect for 3 years, Lin Fan had to head back and make up for it properly. This was especially the case with his situation right now. He had to request for some information about dangerous places and frightening people to look out for. His path of hunting had to be initiated real soon. They're gone. The elderly man beside Feng Yanyan spoke up as his eyes shone with a sharp glint. He had not expected that he would be able to meet with a powerful being of that level in his lifetime. Slaying golden immortals just like slaying dogs. He handled it simply with ease. That was something absolutely horrifying for him to even think of. To think that the Maple Forest City would have an affinity of this sort. Feng Yanyan said. That's right. Now that we have this mysterious formation above us, it will be able to protect the Maple Forest City from external assaults. This will be more than enough. The elderly man remarked as he admired the formation that was shrouding the Maple Forest City right now. This formation was mysterious beyond anything he had ever seen. At the same time, there was a power of killing seeping out of it. If anyone were to try attacking the Maple Forest City, they would most likely be slain in an instant. Formidable. A power of this level was truly formidable indeed. Are we heading over to your sect now, big bro? Chu Zanyu asked curiously. Yes. Lin Fan nodded his head. He did not know what sort of changes the Heaven and Earth sect had undergone in the past 3 years. This was something that left him curious as well. We can be considered as people who have seen major sects before. The name of the Heaven and Earth sect is renowned. In the past, we had tried to enter the Heaven and Earth sect as well, ultimately in vain. So, we decided to forget about it ever since. Jin Zhenggu reminisced about the past while saying. Lin Fan looked at the both of them and chuckled out momentarily. If both of you want to join, you can do it, you know. Chu Zanyu was excited at the thought of it for a second before deciding to scrap it. We had better not join it. Following you is as good as joining it, big bro. Yes, that makes sense. Jin Zhenggu nodded his head in agreement. Haha, Lin Fan burst out in laughter. Let's not talk about it then. It's not as though you guys will suffer by following me, will you? A few days later, the Heaven and Earth sect appeared in Lin Fan's sight. Glancing over, Lin Fan realized that the Heaven and Earth sect was extremely lively. This was especially the case for the skies above the sparring arena. Powers were rumbling so furiously that even the void was getting distorted over it. Could there be another grand competition again? Lin Fan was somewhat intrigued as he headed over for the mountain entrance. At the mountain entrance, there were 2 disciples who were chatting while looking over at the distance, revealing a look of thirst on their faces. It seems to be really exciting over there. It's a pity we've got to guard the entrance. One of the disciples said. No matter how exciting it is, it's none of our business. We've only just joined the sect. If we're not the ones to guard the entrance, who would? The other disciple replied. Someone's here. When the 2 disciples, who were in the midst of chatting, caught sight of Lin Fan, they headed forth immediately. Lin Fan took out his token, which was a symbol of the remnants. Naturally, the 2 disciples recognized the token before looking over at Lin Fan politely. Senior brother. Yes. Lin Fan nodded his head and entered the sect. Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu, who were following behind him, puffed out their chest and walked in as well, feeling extremely proud. After Lin Fan's group entered, the 2 disciples started discussing questioningly. That was a senior brother just now. Moreover, he is also a remnant. However, we've seen all of the remnants before, but somehow, I don't recall ever seeing him before. One of the disciples remarked curiously. That's not a surprise, is it? Out of the 10 great remnants, there was always a seat that was empty. Since when had you seen all of them before? The other disciple replied. Ah, could that person from earlier be? The first disciple exclaimed. Even though they had entered the sect not too long ago, they had heard of the rumors before. The number 1 remnant in the entire sect had suppressed all the other remnants such that they couldn't lift their heads high. Not only that, he had left the sect for 3 years and did not return at all. He was extremely mysterious. Big bro, the heaven and earth sect is so lively. Choose on you looked left and right while exclaiming. That's obvious. Major sects are always bustling with life. Lin Fan smiled out and then looked over at the distance. Let us head over there to check it out. The sect's main hall, on the sparring arena. You've let me win, a man said while cupping his fists together. However, his eyes shone with a look of contempt. On the viewing platform, Grandmaster Han. Gosh, it's embarrassing, but my sect's remnant has managed to win somehow with luck once more. The Grandmaster of the Kunlun God sect revealed a smug smile. The Kunlun God sect had always exchanged activities with the Heaven and Earth sect. This time around, it was time for the Heaven and Earth sect to play the host. However, their motive as the guest was all just a front. The main purpose for their trip was to check out the strength of the Heaven and Earth sect's next generation. Doesn't matter. Han Juntian smiled out calmly as though it did not bother him at all. However, he was just cussing out in his heart. What the FCK was up with these remnants? All of them seemed so weak as though they hadn't eaten at all. At the same time, how could the strength of the Kunlun God sect's remnants be this strong? They were so strong that it was a little sick. Next up, the duel is between the Kunlun God sect's remnant, Yan Qingshe, and the Heaven and Earth sect's remnant, Ling Wuzun. The Heaven and Earth sect's remnants had been losing more than they had won. Out of 6 matches, they had only won 2. This was pretty embarrassing indeed. Ling Wuzun looked left and right while revealing an exasperated expression. Junior brother Ling, steady up. You've got to win this. Remnant Jian Kangchong said with a frightfully pale face. He had already lost on the arena earlier on. In the past few years, he had already reached the true immortal state full cultivation level, and was just that step away from the mystic immortal state. But, to think that this disciple of the Kunlun God sect would be even sicker. He was taken down in merely 10 moves. That was indeed an extremely wretched state to be in. I'll try my best. What else could Ling Wuzun say? Other than trying his best, there was no other way out. The disciples of the Kunlun God sect seemed as though they had popped down some pills, and were unusually ferocious. They weren't folks that ordinary people could deal with. November LBJNN. Furthermore, given the situation right now, he did not have that much confidence either. When he looked at how smug the disciples of the Kunlun God sect were looking, Ling Wuzun just could not get his spirits up. Bloody hell, he could lose his own face as badly as he wanted, but he could absolutely not cause the sect to lose face. At this moment, Ling Wuzun thought of that accursed number 1 remnant. That was the fella he hated the most, Lin Fan. Bloody hell, if that fella were here at the sect, things wouldn't have gotten this pathetic as well. Mother *C King Hell. While Ling Wuzun could never forget the humiliation that Lin Fan had handed him, he was rather hoping that the latter would appear given the current situation. He would rather have that fella take the limelight than have these disciples of the Kunlun God sect show their might before the Heaven and Earth sect. On the seats of the elders at this moment, Qing Yangxi's face was flashing with green and white colors, evidently awkward. To think that they would have lost this badly. This was simply way too embarrassing. He then secretly turned to look over at the Grandmaster's expression, and discovered that the latter's face was totally composed. However, even then, he could not hide that bit of anger burning in his eyes. FC King Hell, where has that lad died off to? Not a single peep of news for the past 3 years. Could he have met with some old monster outside and defected away to rely on others right away? Honestly, Qing Yangxi could not shrug that idea off his mind entirely. On the sparring arena, Ling Wuzun looked at this woman before him, who was so beautiful that she seemingly could not get any more beautiful right now. He cupped his fists gently and introduced himself, Remnant Ling Wuzun. Yan Qingshe smiled softly before giving him a disdainful look. That name is pretty domineering. Wuzun, huh, but, we'll see if you've got the strength to back it up. You had better take out all of your strength. Otherwise, it's going to be really embarrassing if you lose too badly. Ling Wuzun frowned, evidently displeased. However, he did not dare to underestimate her in his heart. He had heard of the rumors of this Yan Qingshe before. Even though her cultivation state was similar to his, her powers were extremely profound, with a deep source. Not only that, the mystic skills she deployed were extremely tyrannical. If he did not take her seriously, he might really be the one on the losing end. Chapter 1031 I'll do it then. Chapter 1031 I'll do it then. At the seating area of the Kunlun God sect remnants. The 9 remnants sat there in a lofty manner. One of them chuckled out in amusement, "How many moves do you guys think that he can hold out against our junior sister?" Another remnant shook his head, "That's hard to say now. If junior sister were to get serious, she would be able to take him down within 10 moves. But, if junior sister feels like toying with him, it might take a little longer. Although, that would cause this Ling Wuzhen's face to be lost really big time then." A remnant remarked. "Ha ha ha, that's what I think as well. Even though our junior sister is a female, she isn't someone to be underestimated at all." At the seat of the Grand Master. "Grand Master Han, what do you make of this female disciple?" the Grand Master of the Kunlun God sect asked while smirking. Han Juntian took a casual glance. "Passable, foo. The Grand Master of the Kunlun God sect chuckled out softly before muttering out, "However, you must not underestimate her. I think that disciple of yours is going to be in for a rough time now." Han Juntian did not reply as he focused on the situation on the sparring arena. "Please enlighten me then," Ling Wuzun said before his body moved instantly. With a stern expression on his face, he deployed a mystic skill immediately. As he covered the entire sky with his palm, his powers rumbled out to try and suppress Yan Qingshe. On the other side, Yan Qingshui's body budged. Not bad. To use the heaven and earth 5 elements palm and seal up the heaven and earth in order to lock down my movements. However, it's a pity that your mastery of it is far from perfect." Yan Qingshe focused slightly as a long whip appeared in her hands, snow white all over. When it made contact with the ground, the entire sparring arena froze up because of it. Waving out her hand, her brandished whip struck the air, causing the void to freeze up equally as well. "How about now? Are you starting to feel that your motion is getting sluggish?" Yan Qingshe asked. Ling Wuzun was feeling a little pissed in his heart. Bloody hell, it was just a duel. Did she have to spout out so much crap? His body then shuddered furiously before giving off a brilliant glare that was as bright as a scorching sun. This beam of light surged up into the sky, penetrating through the void. The frozen voids melted instantly. Not bad. I guess the remnants of the Heaven and Earth sect do have some capabilities after all. But, this is still not enough just yet, Yan Qingshe said with a low tone as she tossed out the long whip in her hands. Like a gigantic dragon, it spiraled out and pierced toward Ling Wuzun's chest. Deluo Emperor Heaven Palm, suppress. Ling Wuzun had made quite a decent improvement in the past few years as well, having cultivated a number of pretty formidable mystic skills. This was especially the case for this Deluo Emperor Heaven Palm, which had an extraordinary impact. Deluo represented the eternity of space, transcending through everything. The might of this palm strike was exceptional, shrouding the entire sparring arena within it and leaving Yan Qingshe with nowhere to run. Good. When Jian Kangchong caught sight of this scene, he could not help but exclaim out. The disciples started discussing as well. Senior brother Ling's strength is so strong. That mystic skill is a famous unparalleled mystic skill of our sect. That woman is done for sure. In the hands of senior brother Ling, how many moves can she hold out for? These remnants of the Kunlun God sect are truly way too arrogant. Do they really think that our Heaven and Earth sect's senior brothers are useless? Fight on, senior brother. When the remnants of the Kunlun God sect saw this, they started discussing amongst themselves as well. Not bad. Ling Wuzun has managed to master this mystic skill to a certain extent. That's right, most people would definitely not be able to defend against it. But against junior sister, it is still too far off. Guys, take a look. Junior sister seems like she's tired of playing with the other party now. It's over. The Kunlun God sect is going to sweep across the entire Heaven and Earth sect. This competition will be enough for the Kunlun God sect to suppress the Heaven and Earth sect for a full 100 years now. Boring. Here I was thinking about how strong you might possibly be. But to think that this would be all you amount to. Yan Qingshui's lips curled into a smirk as she looked at Ling Wuzun. Given your strength, if you were placed in the Kunlun God sect, I'm afraid that you would merely be able to join the ranks of the inner sect disciples. Ling Wuzun was about to spit out blood right now. This B*tch before him was too damned vicious. To think that she would dare spout out such harsh words to humiliate him. Compared to that Lin Fan, she was even more venomous. One must never be too careless in a duel. Right at this moment, Yan Qingshe appeared before Ling Wuzun all of a sudden. Ling Wuzun's face was shocked as he revealed a panicked expression. He wanted to push the other party back. But by this time, it was all too late. The only thing he could see was Yan Qingshui's feet that stomped down on his face. Boom! The entire sparring arena reverberated out as those hard tiles of the ground began exploding, causing the entire sparring arena to be covered in a sandstorm. What's going on? Senior brother Ling couldn't have lost, could he? That's impossible. Absolutely impossible. After the dust cleared, everyone was absolutely dumbfounded when they caught sight of the situation on the sparring arena, their eyes filled with astonishment. Senior brother Ling had truly been defeated. There was a sharp throbbing pain in the hearts of the Heaven and Earth sect's remnants. It was yet another bloody defeat. Your strength is just simply way too weak. Yan Qingshe trampled Ling Wuzun down on her feet directly. For any remnant, this was an absolutely intolerable act. This was especially the fact considering the shame of being stomped upon by a woman. How was he to face the world from now on? Damn it! Ling Wuzun roared out in rage. Yan Qingshui's face shone with a look of contempt. Stop barking now. Your strength is simply too weak when compared to mine. Even if I were to give you 100 years of cultivation, you would never be my match. Take off your foot. Ling Wuzun had not expected that he would be defeated at such lightning speed that he wouldn't be able to react to it at all. That single foot seemed to have crossed through time and space, arriving at his face in the blink of an eye. This. Do you admit defeat? Looking down at Ling Wuzun who was trampled under her feet, Yan Qingshui's face revealed a haughty expression. However, Ling Wuzun did not reply as he continued to struggle against it. Even though Yan Qingshe was a female, the strength she possessed was heavy like a crushing mountain that suppressed down on Ling Wuzun's face mercilessly. When the remnants of the Kunlun God sect caught sight of this, they burst out into laughter. Junior sister is about to break someone's mind again. Ha ha, I'm afraid that from now on forth, the Heaven and Earth sect is going to have a crippled remnant. Anyone who was humiliated by junior sister before could barely ever regain their confidence at all. However, I've got to say that the Grand Master of the Heaven and Earth sect can truly hold his temper. Even if he can't hold his temper, so what? This is a competition between the remnants. Everything is fair and square. If one loses, they can only blame it on their lack of skills. On the Grand Master's seat. That's too much of them. The Grand Master of the Kunlun God sect apologized. However, his eyes shone with a look of gloating glee. Han Juntian sat there with the fury in his heart about to explode out. However, he soon calmed himself down. The Grand Master of the Kunlun God sect looked over at Yan Qingshe, be moderate in your actions. Take care not to spoil the relationship between our sects. Got it, Grand Master. Yan Qingshe nodded her head. She then kicked Ling Wuzun away with her feet as she scoffed out coldly, HMPH. Useless piece of trash. To think that you can even become a remnant with that bit of strength. What a bloody joke. Yan Qingshe then looked over at the remnants of the Heaven and Earth sect. Your lady here hasn't had enough of a fight. Is there not a single remnant in the Heaven and Earth sect who can fight? She used the long whip in her hands to point out at two other remnants. I don't recall both of you having entered the sparring arena yet. Alright then, how about you guys come and spar with me so that I can check out your strength? The many disciples of the Heaven and Earth sect were angered at this moment. N-O-V-E-L-P-I-N-C-O-M. At the start, they were still thinking somewhere along the lines of how pretty this sweet lady was. Some of them even had a slight crush on her. But at this point, they could no longer hold their anger in. Cocky. She was way too cocky. She was just belittling all the remnants of the Heaven and Earth sect, showing them no respect at all. The remnants of the Heaven and Earth sect who had yet to enter the sparring arena were incensed as well. However, the strength of this Yan Qingshe was far from ordinary. Even if they were to head up, they might not be able to win against her. At that point, the entire place fell into an awkward silence. HMPH. Even if your strength can't make it, don't you guys even have the bit of courage to come onto the sparring arena? What a huge disgrace, Yan Qingshe declared haughtily. You. At this moment, one of the remnants bolted upright. His fists were gripped tightly as he was prepared to head onto the sparring arena. But right after he did that, a voice traveled from amongst the spectating disciples. I'll do it then. When the masses present heard that voice, all of their heads turned over in a flush. Chapter 1032 One move, just one move. 1032 One move, just one move. Lin Fan had been observing from below for some time now, feeling that this was really a huge loss of face for the Heaven and Earth sect this time around. To think that they would only win 2 matches in this competition. That was pretty pathetic. Out of the 9 great remnants of the Heaven and Earth sect, there were 2 unfamiliar faces. Lin Fan did not know if 2 of them had been demoted after losing to inner sect disciples or they had chosen to step down from the seat of the remnants to turn into ordinary elders. However, none of that mattered to Lin Fan. As for Qing Yangxi, whose face was filled with embarrassment up till this point, he bolted upright emotionally when he caught sight of the person who had walked out of the crowd. Flushing red entirely, he shouted, "This lad has finally decided to head back." The surrounding disciples broke out in chatter. Who is that person? I've got no idea, but he looks extremely familiar, as though I've seen him somewhere or something. Are you guys stupid or what? That's the number 1 remnant, senior brother Lin. Holy sh*t. That's the guy who had trampled down on Dao Wenshan and assaulted Elder Huo with his fist relentlessly. That's senior brother Lin. That's the one. I've heard that he had headed out of the sect for 3 straight years without returning now. To think that he would be back at this time. When Su Hongchen and the others caught sight of Lin Fan, their expressions were equally dumbfounded. After 3 years, they did not even dare to imagine the extent of senior brother Lin's growth. Even though their strength had been raised by a fair bit as well, they did not dare to compare themselves with senior brother Lin. Senior brother Lin was a supreme paragon, not someone they could ever be on the same level with. Han Juntian heaved a sigh of relief at this moment as well. He had quite a bit of confidence toward the strength of that lad. However, the fact that there was no news of him for the past 3 years did have him feeling a little skeptical at first. If not for the fact that he was still holding on to that remnant token, Han Juntian would have suspected that he might have jumped ships. When Ling Wuzun, who was being suppressed right now, caught sight of the figure before him, his eyes shone with a deep indignance momentarily. However, there was more of fear within them as well. 3 years ago, he was taken down by Lin Fan so badly that he did not even have a chance to retaliate. But now that this guy was back, Ling Wuzun's heart was actually filled with hope instead, wishing that he could take down the Kunlun God sect harshly. Lin Fan looked down at Ling Wuzun and shook his head. "It's been 3 years since I've seen you, yet you are still as useless as ever. To think that your cultivation state would have only been raised to that mere point." The moment Ling Wuzun heard these words of Lin Fan, his face changed immediately as a ball of flames burst forth in his heart. The moment this fella is back, he came straight to humiliate him again. However, Ling Wuzun did not dare to fight back anymore. This person before him was the number 1 remnant, and his senior brother at that. "You were right in your scolding, senior brother." Ling Wuzun lowered his head and replied in respect. "Yes, since you know that it's your bad, hurry up and scram back to train up properly." Lin Fan placed his hands behind his back, filled with a domineering disposition. Ling Wuzun nodded his head immediately, yes. Lin Fan then cast his sight onto the seating area of the remnants. The remaining 8 great remnants bolted upright and greeted politely in reverence, "Senior brother Lin." Lin Fan replied with a expressing his satisfaction toward this behavior of theirs. He then looked over at Jian Kangchong. "Your strength has risen by a fair bit. Seems like you've been working hard for the past 3 years. Jian Kangchong was respectful in his words. "You have been my role model, senior brother." Yes, very well. Right now, Lin Fan was extremely cocky. At the same time, he was pretty proud of himself in his heart. This should be the style a senior should have, being feared without him showing his temper. Big bro is so tyrannical. Down at the viewing platform, Chu Zanyu remarked emotionally. Jin Zhenggu nodded his head as well. That's right. Wherever Big Bro stands, those remnants would have to look at him with respect. They even seem as though they're pretty afraid. Hee. Of course, they're afraid. Our Big Bro is an invincible existence. Chu Zanyu added on. When the newly recruited disciples of the Heaven and Earth sect caught sight of this, they were all shocked silly. They had never seen Lin Fan before. However, they were extremely familiar with the other 9 great remnants, whom they had seen from time to time. All of those senior brothers were extremely haughty characters with an extraordinary aura. Even when they bumped into these remnants usually, they would feel unusually nervous. But, when all 9 of those remnant senior brothers caught sight of this figure on the sparring arena, they were all obedient and polite. This was something that had them extremely astonished. If they had not witnessed this for themselves, they might not have dared to believe it. Yan Qingshe laughed out coldly. "All right, stop with the acting now. You're a remnant and their senior brother, right? Since you're on the sparring arena now, come and fight a round with me. I do have to see for myself what capabilities someone like you has as a senior brother." Just make sure that you don't get walloped like a dog by me later on. Damn it. When the disciples of the Heaven and Earth sect heard these words, they were incensed. This B*TCH was really way too arrogant. She was just not giving any respect to their Heaven and Earth sect. The remnants of the Heaven and Earth sect were equally infuriated. This bitch was way cockier than anyone else. Lin Fan chuckled out softly and shook his head as he looked at this B*TCH, you're way too weak. All the remnants of the Kunlun God sect, come at me together. What? The remnants of the Kunlun God sect were startled before they burst out into laughter. Is this remnant of the Heaven and Earth sect nuts or something? What did he just say? That our junior sister is too weak. He wants us all to go attack him together. There can't be something wrong with his brain, can it? I think there's a high chance of that being the case. Does he not know just how powerful our junior sister is? If all of us were to go together, he would probably be left with nothing but a corpse, I suppose. ... Ha ha ha, Yan Qingxi roared out into laughter. That was an extremely arrogant laughter, to think that the remnants of the Heaven and Earth sect are one better than the other at bragging. Seems like my knowledge of the world has really been expanded today. Someone like you who can only spout out nonsense will definitely be trampled under my feet harshly later on. On the seat of the Grand Masters. Brother Han, that disciple of your sect is quite arrogant. The Grand Master of the Kunlun God sect chuckled out. Han Juntian's lips curled into a smirk. Those are just kind words of advice from my sect's disciple. Huh, the Grand Master of the Kunlun God sect was stunned. He then burst out into laughter as though he had just heard some joke. Lin Fan looked over at Yan Qingxi. His hands were still behind his back, totally unbothered by it. You don't have to laugh now. That was a piece of advice that I was giving you because you're a female. But, if you refuse to believe in it, it doesn't matter. Just be prepared to receive the consequences later then. What did you just say? I can't hear you properly. Please speak louder, Yan Qingxi cupped her ear with a single hand as though she had not heard him clearly. Her expression then changed immediately. Well, don't say that your lady here didn't give you any chances. Take out your full capabilities. Otherwise, don't come complaining that your lady didn't remind you about it when you get trampled under my feet. Lin Fan was still standing there ever so idly as he looked at this person before him with disdain. He had not thought that women these days would be this cocky. To think that she would really dare to step over the heads of the Heaven and Earth sect remnants. She was indeed cockier than anyone could be. When Yan Qingxi realized that the other party was looking at her in disdain, she got enraged. Prepare to die. N-O-V-E in .C Ohm. Pishu. That figure of hers disappeared all of a sudden as though she had vanished from the sparring arena entirely. As for Lin Fan, he was just standing there as per normal without budging even a single inch, as if he was rooted. What in the world is senior brother Lin trying to do? Su Hongchen and the others exclaimed out. The strength of this Yan Qingxi had far exceeded their imaginations. All the other remnants of the Kunlun God sect curled out into a grin, to think that junior sister would have succeeded in training this movement skill. Seems like she has been keeping quite a few things hidden from us, That fella is a remnant of the Heaven and Earth sect. But, he's most probably about to be trampled by the feet of our junior sister cruelly soon. Just at this moment, Yan Qingxui's figure appeared. Kneel down. Lin Fan was still standing there as he shook his head slightly. In the next instant, he raised his palm. Bam! A gigantic explosion boomed out immediately. When everyone caught sight of what happened, they were absolutely dumbfounded. Chapter 1033 Thorough and Complete Takedown. Chapter 1033 Thorough and Complete Takedown. No matter how fast Yan Qingxi was or how profound her powers were, in the eyes of Lin Fan, they were still weak to the point of being pathetic. If he had met her outside, he would have been too lazy to even bother with her. After all, she would barely give any experience points at all. A single slap. There was nothing special to this and neither were there any mystic skills used to boost it. Lin Fan just merely slapped out on Yan Qingxui's face outright. A tremendous amount of power caused her body to fly around the sky in countless circles. That unparalleled, ravishing face of hers was even starting to distort under the might of this power. In fact, there were even a few of her teeth that were knocked out under this immense force. Bam! That seductive body of hers which was the source of endless male fantasies landed onto the ground with a thud like a dead dog. The speed at which everything happened caused everyone to be tongue-tied. They did not even have the time to react to it. At this moment, the entire place fell silent. Everyone was just completely dumbfounded. The remnants of the Kunlun God sect were appalled as their jaws dropped to the ground. They looked carefully at the sight of that figure on the sparring arena, then at their junior sister lying on the ground. This was no dream. This was the cold, hard reality. With that, an uproar broke out. Did you guys manage to catch that carefully? Just what in the world happened? You're asking me, then who in the world am I bloody supposed to ask? I didn't manage to catch sight of it carefully either. Check it out. The right hand that senior brother Lin had placed behind his back is at the front now. Could senior brother Lin have only used a single hand? That can't be right. A single hand. Ha ha ha. I don't really care how he did it, all I know is that we've won. That woman was too darned disgusting to be honest. Initially, she was just looking down on our heaven and earth sect like a piece of trash. But, I'm sure she now knows the consequences of being as cocky, Senior brother Lin is way too savage. To think that he would even strike out at a woman who is as beautiful as a fairy like that. I think he even knocked out some of her teeth. Hooey, even if she's beautiful, so what? Do we not have beautiful girls in our heaven and earth sect? As long as senior brother Lin is willing, I'm afraid that even the most beautiful junior and senior sisters of our heaven and earth sect will be willing to follow him. Beside this disciple was a gorgeous disciple who lowered her head daintily. If senior brother Lin is willing, I will definitely not reject him. See, even junior sister here has agreed to it. That move was way too savage honestly. If not for the fact that I knew how disgusting that woman was, I might have felt my heart break over it. When Su Hongchen, who was below amongst the disciples, caught sight of everything, she could not help but gulp down her saliva. She had suddenly realized that senior brother Lin looked so suave even when he was whacking women. On the seats of the remnants, Jian Kangchong, Ling Wuzun, and the others were ecstatic. They had even nearly leapt out of their seats. Good, that was such a good beating. I've finally managed to ease that air of indignance in my heart. Otherwise, it was going to suffocate me to death. The 9 great remnants were unusually excited right now. This was simply too cathartic a situation, making them feel immensely relieved. Lin Fan's brows twitched, totally unbothered by everything. However, the remnants of the Kunlun God sect were so enraged that they were exploding right now. Junior sister. One of the remnants rushed forth with a menacing expression to check on his junior sister's injuries immediately. But, when he caught sight of how swollen that initially ravishing face of his junior sister had become, a flame of rage burnt from the bottom of his heart entirely. Damn it, you're just bloody courting death. Huang Kuntian was thoroughly incensed right now. He was a remnant of the Kunlun God sect, and had always had a crush on Yan Qingxie. Now that he had to see his junior sister being beaten to a pulp like this, the wrath blazing in his heart was about to burst out. With a pair of malevolent eyes, he glared at Lin Fan in rage. He could not help but want to devour this person up. On the seat of the Grand Masters. The Grand Master of the Kunlun God sect was startled as he stood up slightly. It was as though he was in disbelief. Han Juntian smiled out calmly, seems like he has been a little heavy with his strike. But don't worry, there's no danger to her life. Our sect has healing saint pills that can help her recover just fine. The Grand Master of the Kunlun God sect let out an awkward smile before sitting back down. That won't be needed. Standing there calmly, Lin Fan shook his head. The remnants of the Kunlun God sect are way too weak. All of you guys can come down together. Boom, crash, bam. All the remnants of the Kunlun God sect bolted upright. That gleeful expression they had earlier on was completely gone by now, replaced by pure rage. You be ***, I'll have you dead, Huang Kuntian roared out as he stepped forth. The ground started cracking apart as he rushed toward Lin Fan. His palm covered the entire sky as his powers rumbled. Right now, his eyes were shining with an endless rage. How dare you harm my junior sister? I'll have your life. Lin Fan raised his head and his lips curled into a grin. Without using both his hands, his right leg raised gently. When he pushed out his leg, it was as though they were tearing through the heaven and earth. Bam, bam, Huang Kuntian cried out tragically as he was stomped down and buried deep into a pit by Lin Fan. Weak, far too weak. Is there not even a single person in the Kunlun God sect who can fight? Lin Fan asked in a soft tone. He was echoing the exact same words of Yan Qingxie from earlier on. Shock, astonishment, all the disciples of the Heaven and Earth sect were completely dazed right now before they erupted into cheers. No vel b in c om. Senior brother Lin, tyrannical, good, what was simply way too good a beating? Is there no one from the Kunlun God sect who can fight? That fella, I remember him, he was so conceited earlier on. To think that he would be stamped down into the ground by a single foot of senior brother Lin. Ha ha ha, I'm about to laugh to death. Is there no one in the Kunlun God sect who can fight? Ha. I caught everything carefully this time around. That single kick of senior brother Lin was simply way too tyrannical. I caught it clearly as well. Jian Kangchong, Ling Wuzun, and the others were completely dazed by now. This was especially the case for Ling Wuzun, who could not dare to believe his very eyes right now. Just how strong had this guy become? Ling Wuzun was a petty man. He would forever remember the humiliation that Lin Fan had once dealt him. He was determined to surpass Lin Fan and become a powerful being. But the current situation had even him feeling that wanting to chase up to the ladder was extremely difficult. He might not have that chance even in his entire lifetime. At this moment, Lin Fan's disposition was domineering beyond words. He then looked with disdain at the other remnants below the sparring arena. What now? Is there no one who dares to come up onto the sparring arena? You guys can come at me together. The remaining remnants of the Kunlun God sect felt their faces tense up. They were no fools. Naturally, they could tell just how strong the other party was. At the start, they took down the remnants of the Heaven and Earth sect as though they were taking down toys. It was extremely easy. But things had changed now. Right now, this remnant of the Heaven and Earth sect who had appeared later on was the one who was taking them down like toys. A character as such caused them to remember someone, Qin Shungjin of the God Essence sect. 13 years ago, that person was an existence who had surpassed every other genius. Right now, he was a top existence within the God Essence sect, and reigned supreme over the entire world. Even if it were all the genius disciples of the Kunlun God sect combined, they would pale in comparison with Qin Shungjin. At this moment, an elder from the Kunlun God sect stood up with a serious expression. Let the duels end here then. We must not spoil the relationship between the two sects. The elder had placed extra emphasis on the word, relationship. In actual fact, the Heaven and Earth sect and the Kunlun God sect did not have any sort of relationship. They were just cooperating in terms of strategies when it came to fights between the other sects. This was a type of fragile relationship that could break apart at any moment. Lin Fan raised his head with an arrogant expression. Do you think that it will end just because you said so? Who do you think you are? Qing Yangxi facepalmed his forehead. Bloody hell, this lad was thinking about creating trouble once more. Hue, Grandmaster Han, this precious remnant of your sect is really arrogant, The elder turned his head around immediately and said with a weird tone. Han Juntian grinned slightly, however, his eyes shone with astonishment before long. Since you say that I'm arrogant, your daddy will show you what true arrogance is. The Grandmaster himself has yet to call an end to this, and yet you think you're in the position to speak. All of a sudden, Lin Fan's figure disappeared from the sparring arena. The next time he appeared, he was already in the void above the head of that elder who had spoken. The elder was taken aback. You dare? Lin Fan smiled calmly as he slapped down with his palm. He was going to take down this elder thoroughly and completely so that the latter would what the true meaning of arrogance was. Chapter 1034 You must protect him properly, alright. Chapter 1034. You must protect him properly, alright. The newly recruited disciples of the Heaven and Earth sect were shocked silly. Our sect's senior brother Lin is way too tyrannical, isn't he? To think that he would strike out at an elder of the Kunlun God sect directly. Just what sort of capabilities does he have? Hue, senior brother Lin is extremely capable. Can't you tell that senior brother Lin hasn't even used any mystic skills just yet? All he did was slap down. Who else would have guts like that? It's so nice to have a senior brother like that. If we are ever bullied by anyone in the future, senior brother will definitely help us stand off. On the seats of the Grandmasters. The face of the Grandmaster of the Kunlun God sect was looking extremely terrible. But when he caught sight of how that disciple had dared to challenge their elder, his lips curled into a smirk. Elder Wang, just teaching him a small lesson will do. Make sure that you do not take his life. The position of this Elder Wang was extraordinary in the Kunlun God sect. Otherwise, there was naturally no way he would be accompanying the Grandmaster over to the Heaven and Earth sect. With a cultivation state of golden immortal realm, he was far from simple. Every single strike of his was absolutely earth-shattering. The might of a golden immortal could cause the entire world to shake. For a mere remnant to challenge a golden immortal, that was just the former seeking death. Don't worry, Grandmaster, I know my limits. Such an arrogant disciple naturally deserves a good lesson. Otherwise, he would die if he were to go out with that attitude. Elder Wang laughed out coldly. He was already enraged over the fact that this disciple had dared to provoke him. However, they were in the Heaven and Earth sect right now. Therefore, he would naturally not take the latter's life. Although, the consequences would be far from normal still. Even if he were to strip this fella of his cultivation state, so what? The palm above his head wasn't anything flashy, neither was it some type of secret mystic skill. It was just a plain and simple palm strike. Elder Wang's face tensed up slightly as a beam of light gushed forth from that golden immortal body of his. This was a light beam that could destroy anything that was below the golden immortal realm in its path. In a flash, Elder Wang raised his hand and placed 2 fingers together. Once Lin Fan was to land, he would undoubtedly destroy the latter's law and waste him completely. Qing Yangtze bolted upright as his eyes shone with a look of worry. However, it was all too late right now. Lin Fan smiled gently as he pushed down with his palm, colliding against that beam of light. Hue, overestimating your strength. Elder Wang laughed out in disdain. However, his expression changed all of a sudden. Lay down, Lin Fan called out coldly as he grabbed onto that light beam with his fingers. Creak, a crisp sound rang out. As though it had met with some tremendous impact, the light beam exploded. Bam, how could this be? Elder Wang's face drained of color as the laws of golden immortals within his body burst wildly. To his horror, he realized that there was a boundless might attached to that palm strike, such that no one could defend against it at all. Bam, in that instant, everyone was in a complete daze over the sight before them. It was as though they had just seen a ghost, their faces filled with disbelief. Lin Fan landed down with his hands behind his back. Even an elder of the Kunlun God sect could only amount to this much. This is pretty disappointing. Uproar. What? That Elder Wang was a golden immortal powerful being. How could this be? How in the world did that fella cultivate? Above true immortal state is the mystic immortal state, above which is the golden immortal state. Every single golden immortal is a significant powerful being in the world. How can a remnant of the heaven and earth sect be that strong? Ling Wuzun felt his body shivering. He could never catch up, not even with his entire lifetime. Was this fella even a human or not? How in the world could he even be this strong? Just what had he been through in the past 3 years to turn this sick? At this moment, all the remnants of the heaven and earth sect could clearly feel how wide the gap between them and this person was. Initially, they had thought that being a remnant was the only thing that was befitting of their strength. But, after witnessing Lin Fan's strength, they realized that their position as remnants was an utter joke. No-vel-p in .c ohm. On the other side, all disciples of the Kunlun God sect were completely frozen as they stood there blankly. In their eyes, he was no longer a human at all. At this point, no matter how much Lin Fan humiliated them, they could not get enraged at all. This wasn't someone they could stand shoulder to shoulder with. There was a huge gulf between them which they could never ever hope to cross. Elder Wang was slapped down onto the ground by Lin Fan's palm strike. That was all a golden immortal amounted to in front of him. If not for the sake of the sect, Lin Fan would not have minded killing him. After all, there were still a few experience points to be gained out of that. Brazen, the Grand Master of the Kunlun God sect could no longer tolerate this anymore as he emanated out a horrifying aura. It was as though he was ready to strike out at any moment to take down Lin Fan. Han Juntian smiled out calmly and spoke up straightaway. What now? Do you intend to interfere in the business of the younger generation? The voice of Han Juntian had the Grand Master of the Kunlun God sect calming down immediately. He then let out a strange smile. Oh, how could I do that? Congratulations on the other hand though, Brother Han. The fact that the Heaven and Earth sect could have such a brilliant genius is your fortune. You must definitely protect him properly, all right? That's of course. The Heaven and Earth sect will naturally protect him properly. However, for this matter, I suppose that I, Han Juntian, have got to account for it properly. Han Juntian chuckled out slightly before turning over to Lin Fan. Lin Fan, hurry and apologize to Grandmaster Tai, won't you? Lin Fan chuckled out as well as he raised his head. Oh, my apologies, Grandmaster Tai. I had not expected that this precious elder of your sect would be so pathetically weak. Had I known that was the case, I would not have been so hard with my strike. Doesn't matter, there's nothing to begrudge when their skills are weaker. Tai Qianshan put on a huge forced smile as though he was magnanimous. However, the fury within him was practically enough to incinerate the entire world. If not for that fact that he had to consider his position, he would have long suppressed Lin Fan. Grand Master, if there's nothing else, your disciple will return to his peak first. Lin Fan spoke up. All right, Han Juntian smiled out. His heart was naturally joyous right now. Their face had been fought back and restored. Lin Fan felt that this place was really boring as he brought Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu back to his peak. When the Heaven and Earth sect's disciples watched their senior brother Lin leaving, their eyes shone with a look of reverence. He was simply way too tyrannical, truly the role model of their times. They did not hope to be the exact same as their senior brother Lin. But, as long as they could even have 10% of his strength, they would be satisfied. All thanks to the blessings of Lin Fan, the atmosphere of the entire scene had taken a complete 180-degree change. The Heaven and Earth sect was unusually happy. As for the Kunlun God sect people, their faces were terrible, having a grim and baleful mood as though they had just swallowed a housefly. The Grand Master of the Kunlun God sect, Tai Qianshan, stood up. "Brother Han, we'll take our leave first then. Now that the Heaven and Earth sect has produced a genius of this level, it's truly something that's worth being joyous about and celebrating. You're too kind, too kind. From now on, we will still have to depend on you to take care of us, brother." Han Juntian's mood was extremely relaxed right now. This was the type of feeling he had aimed for. At the same time, he felt relief in his heart. Thankfully, that lad had made it back in time. Otherwise, they would have really lost all their face. After the events this time around, Han Juntian had truly understood that there was quite a big difference between the remnants of the Heaven and Earth sect and those of the Kunlun God sect. He really had to train them up properly now. Otherwise, they would not be able to hold their ground in the future. Tai Qianshan did not say anything more. Sweeping his robes, he enveloped all the disciples of the Kunlun God sect and dove into the void straight to leave this place. Right before they left, Tai Qianshan cast a glance far in the distance where Lin Fan had flown off to. This issue was far from over. After the masses of the Kunlun God sect took their leave, the disciples of the Heaven and Earth sect roared out in cheers. "Qing Yangxi, follow me to the Saint Devil Peak." Han Juntian spoke up. Right now, Qing Yangxi had many questions for Lin Fan as well. Therefore, he naturally agreed to it readily. "All right. Saint Devil Peak." Lin Fan was back to the place he was familiar with. "Big bro, is this your mountain peak here?" Chu Zanyu asked. Yes, Lin Fan nodded his head. This time around, the main reason for his return was to clarify some stuff before heading out to explore the world outside for yet another round. After all, raising one's strength was of paramount importance. He could not allow any delays in that task. But just at this moment, raindrops suddenly poured down from the void above out of nowhere. Drip, drop, pitter-patter. "It's raining," Chu Zanyu exclaimed out in astonishment. Lin Fan stretched out his palm and allowed the rainwater to flow down his body. There was something different about this rain. Chapter 1035 Grand Master Candidate. Chapter 1035, Grand Master Candidate. When the raindrops landed on Lin Fan's body, they gave off a mysterious aura. Sensing that, Lin Fan breathed out a short laughter. "Ha ha, it is the original you indeed. For you to have grown to such an extent in just 3 years is something that even your Grandmaster is having difficulty believing. Therefore, I could only test and check to make sure you've not been replaced by some monster or anything." Han Juntian stepped out of the void while saying. Standing beside the Grandmaster, Qing Yangxi heaved out a sigh of relief as well. The main reason was that the growth of this lad had been way too tremendous. Being able to take down a golden immortal after just 3 years. What sort of an idea was that? In fact, even Qing Yangxi himself had been wondering if Lin Fan had met any mishaps or was possessed by some evil being to infiltrate the sect, since there had been no news from him for 3 years now. But after the test of the Grandmaster, he heaved out a sigh of relief as well. "Grandmaster." Lin Fan cupped his fist and greeted. Han Juntian's mood was pretty decent right now. "Good. Very good. What sort of a reward do you want?" As for things like rewards and whatnot, Lin Fan wasn't really bothered about it at all. Right now, what he needed the most was experience points. "Grandmaster, that is only my duty as a disciple," Lin Fan replied politely. Han Juntian nodded his head and swept out his robes, causing a couple of pills and treasures to float out. "You have contributed to the sect. This is what you deserve." Lin Fan cast his sights over and his heart leapt with joy. To think that these pills would be immortal pills. Immortal pills possessed the laws of the immortal Tao, and therefore, each immortal pill would always bring a tremendous amount of benefits. This was especially the case for Lin Fan. These were all experience points for him. However, ever since he had broken through to the golden immortal state, ordinary immortal pills did not have much of a use to him anymore. The only things that could still give him an ocean worth of experience points were probably upper and supreme grade immortal pills by now. However, these few pills were all lower and middle grade immortal pills. Anyway, they would still do. Since they were gifts from the Grandmaster, Lin Fan naturally accepted them. When Qing Yangxi caught sight of how generous the Grandmaster was, he felt pretty good in his heart as well. The fact that a disciple brought by him was being recognized by the Grand Master was an incredible honor for him. Amongst the treasures was a lower-grade immortal weapon that emanated the radiance of the immortal Tao. Lin Fan could do without something like this, but for anyone else, this was just absolutely extraordinary. If they could only get their hands on a single lower-grade immortal weapon, they would definitely flip out in joy. Much thanks, Grand Master, Lin Fan said humbly. Yes, train hard and well. Also, do watch out when you're heading out in the future. That Tai Qianshan is extremely petty. Even though it might not get to the extent where he would hunt you down personally, it'd still be better to take caution. Han Juntian said. The one thing Lin Fan was least afraid of was people causing trouble for him. He would kill no matter how many people came at him. However, if the Grand Master of the Kunlun God sect were to come at him personally, that might get a little troublesome. Since the Grand Master was so certain about it, the possibility of that happening should be close to none. And even if something like that did happen, Lin Fan was sure that the Grand Master must have prepared some tricks up his sleeves. But, to be honest, Lin Fan was someone who had even dared to face up against the boundless future Buddha Lord. It was not as though he could get afraid of one single Tai Qianshan. After handing over some more stuff, the Grand Master took his leave. At the same time, he gave Lin Fan even more authority as he promoted him to one of the Grand Master candidates of the sect, giving him the right to fight for the position of Grand Master. Within the sects, other than the remnants, there were still the Grand Master candidates. These disciples were all chosen from within the remnants. However, they did not reside within the sect. They just roamed around the endless mainland, and would only be back when it was time to contest for the position of Grand Master. Lin Fan had not come across these disciples before, the main reason for that being that his strength was far too weak 3 years ago. Normally, the position of remnants was the highest position that only the top disciples could reach within the sect. Lad, you have not let me down indeed. To think that you would give this old man such an incredible surprise after 3 years. This is simply way too alarming. Qing Yangzi exclaimed. Lin Fan chuckled out, Elder Qing Yangzi, so, who are the other Grand Master candidates? Given your strength right now, you are definitely one of the forerunners in contesting for the position of the Grand Master. There were a total of 12 Grand Master candidates in the sect. With you, there are 13 now. You can take a look at this. The name list of the Grand Master candidates is here. Qing Yangzi took out a jade bamboo scroll. Lin Fan took a look and felt his heart skip a beat. These were extraordinary beings indeed. To think that even the weakest among them would be at the golden immortal full cultivation state. These disciples do not stay within the sect usually, and are always out training in the endless mainland. Other than a few elders within the sect, their position in the sect is above everyone else. Qing Yangzi said. So, that's the case. Gosh, I was just thinking that if these remnants were the only fresh blood that was within the sect, our sect would definitely not exist anymore after 100 years. Lin Fan said. Haha, Qing Yangzi roared out in laughter, but, that's not truly the case either. The ones truly protecting the sect are the senior elders, who are all trying to seek out even higher cultivation states. Unless the sect is ever faced with a calamity of being destroyed, those senior elders will not show their faces at all. The legacy of the Heaven and Earth sect has been around for 100,000 years now. No one knows how many Grand Masters there have been. Each time a Grand Master stepped down from his position, they would retreat to the deepest parts of the sect to cultivate. As for just how deep the foundations of our sect actually reach, that is something that is probably known to no one other than the Grand Master himself. Lin Fan nodded his head. This was something that he understood now. Perhaps he had just been oversimplifying things in the past. At the same time, he understood why those Grand Master candidates would choose not to cultivate and train within the sect. If they were to train here for their entire lives, they might not have that great of an improvement. It was only through entering the endless mainland and facing the trials and tribulations out there that would bring forth a brighter future for them. Elder Qing Yangzi, I want to know of the countless secret and dangerous grounds of the endless mainland. I intend to head out to train before long. Lin Fan said. Don't worry, I will prepare everything for you. Qing Yangzi naturally wanted to shoulder all the responsibility onto himself. Lin Fan was someone whom he had inducted into the sect. If this person were to become the Grand Master, that would be just crazy. Even if Qing Yangzi were to die, he would definitely pass on to the underworld while smiling. As for those Grand Master candidates, some of them had headed out to train for dozens of years now. There were even those who had trained for hundreds of years. No one knew just what was the extent of their growth in cultivation state. After Qing Yangzi left, Lin Fan returned to the house. As for Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu, their interest toward the Heaven and Earth sect was piqued at this point. At the same time, Lin Fan did not want to bring them along with him. After all, it was really way too dangerous out there. This time around, Lin Fan intended to head to the deepest parts of the endless mainland. There might be even graver dangers there. If anything were to go wrong, he could very well die right there. N.O.V.L.B. in .C. Ohm. As for how huge the endless mainland was exactly, no one knew for sure. Even a powerful being such as the Grand Master had not personally reached the ends of the endless mainland. There were a lot of places that were unknown to them out there, so he had to be careful. After Ling Wuzun returned to his peak, he had some plans of his own. The display of might that Lin Fan had shown upon his return was a huge blow for him. He felt as though he was a frog in a well, thinking which, he began making plans. He wanted to head out of the sect to train. Even if he were to die outside, he would have to try and raise his strength. If he did not crush Lin Fan beneath him, he would never be satisfied. Well, even if he could not take down Lin Fan, the least he wanted to be on even grounds with him. That would soothe his heart at least. 3 days later, Ling Wuzun left the sect. As to where he went, no one knew. 10 days later, Lin Fan had fully prepared himself within the sect by now. At the same time, he had gotten wind of some places he could aim for on the endless mainland from Qingyangxi. Chu Zanyu and Jin Zhenggu had been accepted as inner sect disciples of the sect with their strength of true immortal state. Lin Fan then entrusted them to Elder Qingyangxi's care. At the sect entrance, when Qingyangxi, Chu Zanyu, and Jin Zhenggu looked at that leaving figure of Lin Fan, they sighed out gently. Big bro is gone now. I wonder when he'll return. Chu Zanyu said with reluctance. The next time Big Bro returns, he will definitely bring for us an even greater surprise. Jin Zhenggu surmised. Qingyangxi's heart was filled with an infinite curiosity as well. He wondered just what sort of surprises Lin Fan would return with the next time. As for Lin Fan, he was instead over to the Rising Dragon City at this moment. He felt that he ought to go check it out a little. After all, he had lived there for 11 years no matter what. Chapter 1036 Return. Chapter 1036, Return. Rising Dragon City. It was just an ordinary city at one point in time. But, with the appearance of a gifted genius such as Lin Fan, the entire place became famous overnight and shocked the entire world. The Lin family had turned into the leader of the 8 great families. However, they did not rule over the other families through their strength, just with their name alone. As for the other 7 great families, none of them were displeased in the slightest bit. The fact that the Lin family head, Lin Haoming, wasn't someone who was interested in power struggles had the other great families feeling immensely grateful. The reason why they were willing for the Lin family to be the leader family was naturally because of that gifted genius, Lin Fan. He was their young master recruited by the Heaven and Earth sect. However, the fact that he had not even returned once in the past 3 years was something that had everyone feeling a little bewildered. In fact, they could not even get rid of a growing thought that the young Master Lin might have been killed by others outside. Even though it was a great fortune for someone to be taken in by a sect, sects were not places like playhouses. It was a place filled with immense dangers. The number of disciples who died outside was uncountable. Even though the other 7 great families did bear such thoughts before, they buried it at the bottom of their hearts. That was because they had realized that the feeling of living as such in the past few years was pretty decent as well. As for the big missy of the Lin family, she was out of the city in a sect as well. Through a stroke of affinity, she had managed to enter a female sect. This was something that left the Lin family ecstatic. 2 outstanding talents being produced by their family was something absolutely heaven-revolting. But, this big missy of the Lin family, Lin Hanyu, would always return from time to time and hand over some pills to the Lin family. At the same time, she would split them out for the other 7 great families as well. This was a really pleasant feeling. Crackle, pop, sizzle, bang. The Rising Dragon City was bustling with life right now as fireworks filled the sky. Many people were gathered at the city entrance. There were members of the 8 great families present, as well as some of the wealthier folks and commoners. The big missy of the Lin family had returned from the sect once more. Not only that, she seemed to have brought back good news this time around. Brother Lin, congratulations. To have 2 outstanding talents in your family, the Lin family could be said to be skyrocketing into the heavens. The Huang family head, Huang Yan, congratulated. At the same time, there was a slight bit of envy in his heart as well. When he looked at his son, Huang Yan felt miserable in his heart. That guy was just wasting his time idly every day without seeking to improve himself at all. In fact, he hadn't even gotten himself a wife till now. You're too kind, too kind. Lin Haoming was truly feeling pretty good in his heart right now. To think that he would have brought forth the rise of the Lin family single-handedly. Lin Haoming had suddenly realized that he was way too incredibly strong. All the sons and daughters that he had were all so strong. This was especially the case for that son of his who was accepted as a disciple of the Heaven and Earth sect. However, Lin Haoming was a little displeased that this lad had not even brought back home a single piece of news after 3 whole years. That was truly worrisome. If not for the fact that the journey to the Heaven and Earth sect was one that was long and fraught with dangers, Lin Haoming would have wanted to head over to take a look and check out just what sort of big things that lad was being kept busy with. The commoners all around looked at Lin Haoming with envious faces. The life of the Lin family is really good indeed. To think that they would have 2 children entering sects. That's right, in the past, the Lin family used to be the weakest of the 8 great families. But right now, they're leading the pack for real. The big Missy of the Lin family would always return once per year. But, as for young Master Lin, no one has heard from him for 3 years now. I've heard rumors that the young Master Lin might have died outside the sect. You had better keep those nonsensical words to yourself. It would be bad if anyone heard you. Highs, it's not that I want to spout these nonsensical words either. But, this was something that had already been spreading since half a year ago. Even people who were within the Heaven and Earth sect did not have any idea on where the young Master Lin was. Shish, that's enough now. Daddy, is that big sister? At this moment, the youngest daughter, Lin Lanur, pointed over to a spot of light in the sky and exclaimed excitedly. In 3 years, Lin Lanur had grown into an elegant and breathtaking woman. The number of people coming forth for marriage proposals for her were so many that the Lin family's doorsteps were almost going to be broken apart from their footsteps. If this were in the past, Lin Haoming would have naturally just looked for some good in-laws. But now that Lin Fan was so extraordinary, his aim was to groom his remaining 2 children well. It'd be for the best if they could enter sects as well. It should be, Lin Haoming said with a smile on his face. Soon, the bright spot came even closer. At this moment at the entrance of the rising dragon city, a few figures descended from the void. Lin Hanyu was amongst them, accompanied by 3 other women. There was a man amongst them as well. Lin Haoming shouted out happily, "Light the fireworks." Bam, bam, the fireworks flowered in the sky, letting off a spectacular sight. Lin Haoming rushed forth immediately. "Daughter, you're back. Father, mother, younger sister." Lin Hanyu's face was beaming with a bright smile. Even though she had been returning once per year, Lin Hanyu was still ever so emotional for her return each time. The feeling of reuniting with one's close ones was something truly amazing for sure. The 4 people behind Lin Hanyu had an indifferent expression on their faces. They did not bother too much about these mortals. All of these were just ants in their eyes. They were only tagging along with their junior sister Lin to check out how the world of mere mortals was like, and that was all. The sect that Lin Hanyu had entered was called the 100 Flowers Palace. It wasn't one of the big sects, and could only be considered as a middle-sized sects. The 9 sects and 6 residences etc. were all prominent sects that had a legacy of hundreds of thousands of years. As for this 100 Flowers Palace, it had only risen in the past tens of thousands of years. Compared to the Heaven and Earth sect, there was a world of difference. There could be no comparison made at all. Father, these 3 here are senior sisters of my sect. They had been especially kind and caring toward me in the sect. Lin Hanyu introduced. She then pointed out at the man beside them, "This here is the son of the Grand Master of the Metal Sword sect." The moment Lin Haoming heard that, he was even more polite in his tone, "Welcome, welcome." How could he not know what sect the Metal Sword sect was? And when he heard that this was the son of the Grand Master, he knew that it was an even more outrageous status there. The son of a sect's Grand Master. This was a super-duper second generation, not someone that a mere mortal family such as theirs could compare with. Ning Tikan nodded his head without a single bit of expression. In fact, he didn't even speak of a single greeting of politeness. Big sister. Lin Feishui and Lin Lanur leapt over and hugged their big sister. After being separated for such a long time, they were naturally missing her badly. When the son of the Metal Sword sect's Grand Master caught sight of Lin Lanur, his eyes flashed with a glint. However, he hid it completely soon after. "Junior sister, let us head over to your house to take a seat first, shall we?" Lin Hanyu's senior sister spoke up. "All right." Lin Hanyu nodded her head. Lin Haoming spoke up at this moment, "Ah, Hanyu. The uncles of the 7 other great families have already prepared a welcome feast for you guys. How about heading over to eat something first? At this moment, the family heads of the other 7 great families waited with bated breath. But, a single sentence from the other side had them feeling awkward. One of the senior sisters, who had a slightly thin face with a protruding cheekbone, remarked, "There's nothing good to eat about the food of mere commoners. We'll head over to your Lin family to take a look first." The moment Lin Hanyu heard that, she nodded her head awkwardly. "Father, I guess let's forget about it." Even though Lin Haoming was evidently somewhat displeased in his heart, he still put on a chirpy smile. All right. Let's head home then." "Oh, right, darling daughter, what good news did you say you were going to tell your father?" Lin Haoming asked. "Father, I'm already an outer sect disciple of the sect now," Lin Hanyu declared happily. Good. Being an outer sect disciple is wonderful. Very well done. I'm sure you will be able to catch up to your younger brother before long." Lin Haoming chuckled out as he said this. "Father, has little brother not returned home yet?" Lin Hanyu asked. In her heart, she had been worrying about Lin Fan all this time. "No," Lin Haoming shook his head. At this moment, Ning Tikan spoke up. "Hanyu, your younger brother has been accepted by the Heaven and Earth sect as a disciple. However, it is not safe in those big sects in the slightest bit. All of those secret grounds are extremely treacherous as well. There's a high chance of people dying there." With these words of Ning Tikan, the entire atmosphere in the air turned awkward. At this point, Lin Haoming's heart was burning with a ball of flames. Was this fella trying to insinuate that his son was dead? But, when he considered the identity of the other party, he let out a smile still nevertheless. Let's head back first. Chapter 1037 Humiliated. Chapter 1037, Humiliated. The Lin family's residence. The family heads of the 7 great families were gathered in discussion. Those disciples of the sect brought back by Hanyu seem pretty overbearing. I can tell that they're totally looking down on us. Their expression looks as though they're just looking at us as beasts. Now, that sentence of yours isn't quite right now, How can they take us as beasts? Well, I was just saying. But in any case, that's my intuition so far. Highs. At times, it really sucks to not have strength on your own. You will forever be under the control of others. Take a look at Brother Lin. His daughter had entered a sect while his son has not returned with any form of news for the past 3 years. Now that his daughter brought back her senior sisters, they are so darned arrogant. Seems like Brother Lin is really going to be in for a rough time now. Should we head over to check things out? No, if we head over, we'll be deemed as causing trouble. Just wait and wait out the situation further. Alright, the situation that the family heads of the 7 great families spoke of had truly happened. Right now, Lin Haoming was having a huge headache. Those few fellas acted as though they were their ancestors. The moment they reached the Lin family, they treated the Lin family like their servants. If not for the fact that they were way too strong, Lin Haoming was even prepared to fall out with them. On the dining table, Lin Haoming did not take the main seat of the host. Instead, Ning Tikan sat there. "Everyone, please enjoy your meal." Lin Haoming invited them with a cheery face full of smiles and politeness. Lin Feishui, Lin Lanur, and Mrs. Lin sat down without making a single peep. They could sense that there was something off with the situation. "Don't bother, I can't bring myself to consume the food of commoners," Ning Tikan said, then took out a pill and swallowed it into his tummy. Out of the 3 senior sisters who had followed Lin Hanyu back, one of them had a pretty good relationship with her. She then took up her chopsticks and started eating. Not bad. The taste is pretty good. Lin Hanyu looked over at her senior sister Xiao Yuya and gave her a look of immense gratitude. As for the other 2 senior sisters, they were just like Ning Tikan. They refused to budge at all, as though this food was way too lowly for them. "If it's not bad, then do please eat more. Thank you all so much for looking after my daughter in the sect," Lin Haoming said. I heard from your father that you had become an outer sect disciple. How is it like being an outer sect disciple? Is it much better than before?" Mrs. Lin asked. Lin Hanyu truly did not know how to reply. Within the sect, outer sect disciples did not have much of a status. Unlike inner sect disciples, they were just like ants. However, to give her family a peace of mind, Lin Hanyu naturally nodded her head. "Yeps, it's good. Ever since I've become an outer sect disciple, things have been much better." "Ah, it's all good as long as things are fine." Mrs. Lin heaved out a sigh of relief. Lin Feishui and Lin Lanur dug into the food with their heads lowered. But suddenly, Lin Lanur raised her head. "How nice would it be if Big Brother were here?" "Father, has there really not been a single peep from little brother in the past 3 years?" Lin Hanyu asked. It was only after entering a sect that she knew how things were like there. The competition between the disciples were extremely intense, and it was filled with dangers. If there had been no news for the past 3 years, that was a situation she did not dare to imagine. Lin Haoming nodded his head, yes. It's been 3 years without news now. I wonder what that lad is doing. Well, that just sounds like a grim omen to me. Ning Tikan spoke up. He did not care about how everyone else at the table felt. And indeed, the moment Ning Tikan spoke up, the faces of Lin Haoming and the others changed slightly. Lin Liner had even rebutted, "You're talking crap. My big brother will definitely be fine." Ning Tikan's face changed, evidently slightly enraged. Lin Hanyu knew of Ning Tikan's background, and was pale as a sheet momentarily. She wasn't close to this Ning Tikan at all. He was an acquaintance of one of her senior sisters. This time around, she had been returning with 3 of these senior sisters when they bumped into this Ning Tikan along the way. She didn't know that much about him either. However, looking at how her senior sisters were all polite and respectful toward him, she naturally knew that she could not afford to offend him. "You said that I'm talking crap." Ning Tikan's face tensed up as his wrath bubbled. When Lin Liner caught sight of this, she was scared silly and sat there blankly. "Sir Ning, please be appeased. My little sister is still young and isn't sensible enough yet," Lin Hanyu said. Senior sister Xiao Yuya helped to chime in from the side as well. "Sir Ning, I'm sure you wouldn't get angry over something as small as this, right?" Lin Haoming added in to apologize profusely as well. This time around, the people brought back by Lin Hanyu weren't people he liked at all. However, what could he do about it? The other party was evidently far from simple. If they had offended him, what could the Lin family have to defend against them? Furthermore, his daughter was still in that sect. If they were to offend the other side and they were to make things difficult for her in the future, what were they to do? HMPH. Ning Tikan snorted out coldly. He was just like a high and mighty sovereign right now. "If there's a next time, I'll definitely kill her without mercy." Boo-hoo. Lin Liner was scared into tears right now as she ran out immediately. Even though Lin Hanyu felt a little enraged in her heart, she did not dare to vent it out. Lin Feishui and Mrs. Lin chased after Lin Liner. As for Lin Haoming, even though he was displeased in his heart, he still laughed out awkwardly in apology. Looking at the situation before her, Xiao Yuya could only look at Lin Hanyu and shake her head exasperatedly, indicating that she could do nothing about it. The position of this Ning Tikan was extraordinary. He wasn't someone they could go against. All they could do was to endure. As a result, this meal was an extremely awkward one. Lin Haoming and the others did not even dare to take in a deep breath of air. Even though Lin Hanyu was an outer sect disciple, in the eyes of Ning Tikan, she was nothing more than an ant, no different from cannon fodder. The next day, the news of Lin Hanyu returning to the Rising Dragon City had spread out. However, everyone also knew that she had brought some other people with her. Those people had a position that was even higher than hers in the sect. Some people wanted to seize the chance to build some connections. But, when they heard that the other party did not even give the Lin family any face, they naturally held back. When it came to people as such who were difficult to get acquainted with, they had better just forget about it. On the streets, Ning Tikan and the others walked ahead while Lin Haoming followed behind and introduced everything about the Rising Dragon City to them. Ning Tikan's head was raised up high as though no one here was worthy of him looking at them. The surrounding passers-by made way immediately, not daring to head up and check it out. Lin Hanyu stood by the side, feeling immensely awkward beyond anything else. At the same time, she was boiling in her heart. "Sir Ning, this is the most glamorous place in the entire Rising Dragon City now," Lin Haoming said. Ning Tikan nodded his head. All of a sudden, Ning Tikan's eyes sparkled as he pushed Lin Haoming aside and rushed ahead. Caught totally by surprise, Lin Haoming was nearly pushed onto the ground. Thankfully, there was someone to support him up. This excitement of Ning Tikan naturally meant that he had bumped into his acquaintances. Senior brother Zhou, senior brother Wang. Long time no see. Ning Tikan came before a stall and cupped his fists while greeting. When these two people who were purchasing some items from the secular world here heard this voice, they raised their heads and stopped looking through the items for a little while. "Oh, it's Brother Ning." Lin Haoming and the others caught up with them as well by this point. Turning around to look at Lin Haoming and the others in disdain, Ning Tikan said, "Let me introduce you guys. These two are inner-sect disciples of the Heaven and Earth sect, Brother Zhou and Brother Wang." When the senior sisters of Lin Hanyu heard the identity of the other side, they were a little excited. Greetings to the two senior brothers. The Heaven and Earth sect was a big sect within the Endless Mainland, and the disciples within were all extraordinary. It wasn't something that sects like theirs could compare with. When Lin Haoming heard that the other side were disciples of the Heaven and Earth sect, he got emotional momentarily and rushed forth to tug at the two of them, "May I ask?" However, before Lin Haoming had even managed to speak up, the face of Ning Tikan turned dark as he kicked him away. "Brazen, these two senior brothers here are not people you can tug at. Lin Hanyu, you had better watch your father's actions. Otherwise, he is going to cause big problems." Ning Tikan barked out coldly. Lin Hanyu could no longer bear with it. She then sighed out and helped her father up. "Father, we'll ask later when there's a chance." Lin Haoming nodded his head. Ning Tikan snorted out coldly once more before turning to the two senior brothers with a face full of smiles. "Senior brothers here, how about letting me prepare a welcome feast for you guys?" Our thanks to Brother Ning then. The two of them did not mind at all. After all, since someone was prepared to host a welcome feast for them, why should they refuse? At this moment, Ning Tikan turned around and said to Lin Hanyu softly, "What are you still waiting for? Hurry and get your father and those family members of yours to start preparing." N-O-V-E-L-B-I-N-C Om. Lin Hanyu had wanted to say something when Xiao Yuya held her back and nodded her head to not have her say anything more. Chapter 1038 Lin Fan's Return. Chapter 1038. Lin Fan's Return. Within the Lin family house, N-O-V-E-L-B-I-N-C Om. Ning Tikan was all smiles as he stepped aside and said politely, "Brother Zhou, Brother Wang, please take a seat." The two of them, Brother Wang and Brother Zhou, didn't feel shy as they walked out briskly toward the main seats. "Brother Ning and fellow junior sisters, please take a seat as well." Ning Tikan sat down following both of them. The remaining three junior sisters did not stand on ceremony as they sat down on the left and right as well. The only one who was displeased in her heart was Lin Hanyu as she stood by the side without budging a single inch. Xiao Yuya pulled at Lin Hanyu and whispered softly, "Sit down. These two aren't people we can offend. It'd be best not to create trouble for your family." Lin Hanyu then sat down with reluctance. In her heart, she was filled with regrets. Had she known that this would happen, she would not have chosen to return. Or in fact, she could have returned alone as well. Everything that was happening right now had her feeling extremely aggrieved in her heart. While the seven of them sat here, the family heads of the 8 great families were just like servants right now, surrounding them while serving them tea, wine, and food. Just what sort of face should someone have to command such a scene? Being summoned here, the other family heads of the 7 great families felt extremely indignant as well. Since when had they ever endured humiliation as such? That Ning Tikan was just calling them by their full names directly and having them serve left and right as though he was calling out to his servants. Pour wine for both of them. Ning Tikan chuckled out before inquiring straight away, "Now, senior brothers, what brings you guys to this small place?" Zhou Jun raised his wine glass and gulped it down with a single swig. "We passed by this area and decided to head down and take a look while buying back some items of the secular world back for our fellow senior and junior brothers." "Oh, so that's the reason. Well, leave that matter to me." Even though Ning Tikan was the young master of the metal sword sect, he was smooth and slick in relationships. Toward the disciples of big sects, he was always polite and reserved. However, he was always cold and haughty toward those weaker than him. "We'll have to trouble you then, Brother Ning." Both of them laughed out before raising their wine glasses and toasting one another, drinking to their heart's contentment. Even though they were only inner sect disciples in the Heaven and Earth sect, to disciples of other sects, they were people with an esteemed status. They naturally knew that Ning Tikan was trying to suck up to them. At the same time, they were more than willing to give him the opportunity to do so. As for these commoners who were serving them wine and food, they both felt that it was the honor of these people. After all, it would be prideful for them to be able to tell the world that they had once served the disciples of so-and-so sect. "Brother Zhou, Brother Wang, this plain and simple place has nothing much to offer. I'm afraid that you guys will have to make do with it." Ning Tikan's tone bore a heavy disdain. When the Huang family head, Huang Yan, served both of them wine, his hand trembled for a moment and spilled some of it onto the table surface. When Ning Tikan saw this, he flew into a rage and barked out, "What are you doing? If you can't even do something as simple as such, what use do you have?" Even though Huang Yan was the Huang family head, how would he dare to be insolent in the face of these disciples of sects? His face was drained of color as he went into a flurry while apologizing profusely. "HMPH. Zhou Jun snorted out coldly. As an inner sect disciple, he was naturally prideful. But of course, he would not go to the extent of striking out at a mere mortal with that slight bit of cultivation state. "Uncle Huang, let me do it." Lin Hanyu's tone was displeased as she walked beside Huang Yan. Taking over the wine jar, she served Zhou Jun wine personally. Zhou Jun smiled out. A beautiful woman with good wine. This was pretty decent. While the faces of the other family heads were normal, they were totally incensed in their hearts. Detestable. These people were too darned detestable. At the entrance of the rising dragon city, a streak of light landed. The first thing that struck the minds of the commoners was fright. But when they saw that it was a human figure, they heaved out a sigh of relief. As long as it wasn't anything non-human, it was fine. Returning to the rising dragon city 3 years later, Lin Fan did not sense much of a change. The city entrance was still the city entrance. Heck, even the tiles had barely changed their position. Stepping a foot into the city, Lin Fan could tell that it was lively as ever. When he thought of that Lin Haoming, Lin Fan could barely hold in his laughter. If that guy knew just how strong he was and what his position in the sect was right now, Lin Fan truly did not know how high that guy would fly. After entering the golden immortal state, Lin Fan's aura had taken on an extremely huge change. Everyone who passed by could not pull their sights away from him. It was as though they were completely mesmerized by him. Some of the passers-by started exchanging glances with one another before conversing. Such a handsome young lad. That's right, I've never seen him before in the past. I wonder which family he is from. Why do I get such a familiar feeling about him? Che, you say that about everyone. The previous time, there was someone else who had arrived that you claimed to find familiar. Have you recalled who he was till now? No, this time around, it's really different. I really do find him extremely familiar. When Lin Fan had reincarnated from the ancient saint world, this was the place where he was born. Even though there was no blood relationship between them, after staying here for 11 years, it was impossible for him to not have feelings. Some of the young girls passing by could not bring their gaze away from him as they tried sending him signals secretly. It was as though they were bewitched by Lin Fan. Lin Fan smiled out, causing his charisma toward these girls to skyrocket even further. When Lin Fan passed by a herbal medicine shop, he could not help but stop in his tracks. Lin Fan remembered this herbal medicine shop. It was a business of the Lin family. At this moment, there was an elderly man whom Lin Fan was extremely familiar with in the shop, the Lin family's old housekeeper. After not seeing him for 3 years, the old housekeeper had aged considerably. However, with the help of pills, he was naturally not at a point where he could not walk or move any longer. Old housekeeper, Lin Fan spoke. When the old housekeeper who was summing up the accounts in the shop right now heard that voice, he was stunned for a moment. He then looked up outside. When his sight was cast over, his face changed into one that bore a slight disbelief. Young master. The old housekeeper was taken aback. When he had verified that it was truly the young master, he rushed out from behind the shopfront and gripped Lin Fan's hands tightly. Young master. Are you really back? Yes. Lin Fan nodded his head. Some of the commoners nearby started exclaiming out. That's the young master of the Lin family. The young master Lin who had entered a sect and from whom no one had heard a single piece of news for the past 3 years. He's back. Holy FCK. The memories of that duel 3 years ago are still fresh as yesterday in my mind. To think that he would truly be back. Not only that, check it out, guys. After 3 years, the aura of around the young master Lin has changed. He is way more fearsome than he was in the past now. The big Missy of the Lin family has also returned from her sect. Now that their young master is back as well, this is truly a matter of double happiness. Haven't you guys heard? Those companions of the big Missy Lin who had come along with her seemed to be pretty disrespectful to the Lin family and the other 7 great families. Ah, I did hear of something like that. Lin Fan's lips curled into a smile. After not returning for 3 years, I do miss this place quite a bit. Let's head back first. Alright. This old servant will rush back to report this immediately. The old housekeeper was extremely emotional right now. Young Master Lin was a gifted genius who was accepted in by the Heaven and Earth sect. A glorious thing as such was the #1 achievement of the entire Rising Dragon City. You don't have to, just come along with me. That'll do, Lin Fan said. As they headed toward the direction of the Lin family, the surrounding commoners started spreading the word by mouth. The young master of the Lin family has returned. For anyone out there, this was an unusually interesting thing to hear about. None of them knew just how the young master of the Lin family had been doing out there for the past 3 years. But now that he was back, the rumors of him having fallen was naturally dispelled. At the entrance of the Lin family, there were 2 guards standing watch. Hurry up and open up. Young master has returned, the old housekeeper cried out emotionally. When the guards heard it, they were stunned for a moment. Without thinking twice, they then shouted out in surprise. To think that the young master would have returned. Lin Fan chuckled as he stepped foot into the Lin family. This time around, he was back to take a look. Just a look and he would be off after he was done. Chapter 1039 Enjoy your meal. Chapter 1039 Enjoy your meal. Even though Lin Haoming was the family head of the Lin family, he was like a servant right now, being made to pour wine, serve food, and exchange plates. It was the same for the other family heads of the 7 great families. Sitting there, Lin Hanyu could not even bear to take in a single bite of her food. Her heart was extremely pained right now. In her eyes, the other party was just humiliating her family. This was especially the case for the expression with which Ning Tikan was looking at her father. It was as though he was looking at an ant. If only she were stronger, something as such wouldn't have happened. Master, young master has returned. At this moment, the voice of the old housekeeper rang through. When Lin Haoming, who was just pouring out wine for everyone present, heard this voice, his hand trembled slightly. He then let out an ecstatic smile as he placed down the wine jar in his hand. Ignoring the expression on Ning Tikan's, which almost seemed as though he wanted to eat him up, Lin Haoming went straight toward the entrance of the house. Lin Hanyu bolted upright as well, as though she could not believe what she had just heard. You're courting death, come over and pour the wine. Ning Tikan was enraged. His voice was thunderous, causing the void to crack out with its might. However, for Lin Haoming, this threat of Ning Tikan meant Jack's tea. When Lin Fan was walking through the courtyard, his brows furrowed at the sound of that enraged shout. He then entered the house. Son, you're finally home. Lin Haoming was smiling ear to ear right now, happier than anyone could ever be. Yes, I'm back. Lin Fan nodded his head before surveying the house. Little brother. Lin Hanyu stood up. Xiao Yuya turned her head around and looked at the person who had arrived, feeling worried in her heart. At this moment, things did not seem as though they were going to be settled that easily, especially not with the expression that Ning Tikan was giving off. When the other family heads caught sight of Lin Fan, they were unusually happy as well. They felt as though they could finally regain all the face they had lost. Clang. Initially, Zhou Jun and Wang Yun were sitting there idly and carefreely, intending to watch the show fall out. But, when they caught sight of that familiar face, they felt their hearts freeze up as they bolted up while shivering uncontrollably. That once comfortable chair seemed as though it was made out of pins right now. Who was asking whom to pour what wine? Lin Fan asked calmly before walking over to the dining table. When he caught sight of everything before him, that initially calm expression of his flashed with a slight tinge of anger. Son, this. Lin Haoming was hesitant, not knowing what he should say. Little brother, these 3 here are your elder sister's senior sisters. Lin Hanyu introduced. Xiao Yuya looked over at Lin Fan and smiled. As for the other 2, they just tossed him a casual glance, and were totally unbothered afterward. Lin Hanyu's younger brother. So what? Even Lin Hanyu was just a mere outer sect disciple. As for this younger brother of hers, he should be treating them with immense respect. Huang Yan spoke up. Young Master Lin, we are waiting on them right now. Oh, waiting on them? Lin Fan raised his head slightly. His face showed an immense might without displaying any anger in them. HMPH. Scram, can't you see that we're having our meal now? Ning Tikan barked out. Lin Fan had merely tossed a quick glance over at Ning Tikan before turning his sight onto the other 2. At this moment, there was an intense tension in the air. All of the commoners who had followed Lin Fan to the Lin residence held their breath as well. They could feel that something big was about to happen here. Zhou Jun and Wang Yun's faces were frightfully pale right now. That initially calm heart of theirs started palpitating furiously. They wanted to move, but they could feel an immense pressure locking down their bodies. But they knew that if they still stood there without budging an inch, the consequences were going to be disastrous. Gulp. The both of their throats started moving and feeling choked as they tried with all their might to budge. Senior brother Ning, this is my little brother. He is a disciple of Heaven and Earth sect. Lin Hanyu called out fiercely. Hue. Ning Tikan laughed out coldly. If this person were truly a disciple of the Heaven and Earth sect, how could Brother Ning and Brother Wang not recognize him when he had entered? But, since Brother Ning and Brother Wang were saying nothing at all right now, it was evident that this person must be any normal disciple in the Heaven and Earth sect. Who knew, he might even be a servant disciple. Good guts there, to have my Lin family and the 7 other family heads wait on you. That is really some bold guts you've got there. Lin Fan said. Ning Tikan chuckled out coldly, Brother Zhou, Brother Ning, what position does this person have in your heaven and earth sect? But when Ning Tikan turned his head around, he was frozen by the scene before him. Right now, Ning Tikan was not the only one who was frozen. Everyone was dumbfounded by what was happening. Zhou Jun and Wang Yun were biting down on their teeth while trembling violently. As though they had used up every single last bit of strength left in their bodies, they collapsed onto their knees in a thud. I intersect disciple Z Zhou Jun. I intersect disciple W Wang Yun. G greetings to Grandmaster C candidate senior brother. Please spare our lives, senior brother. The both of us truly did not know that this was your family, senior brother. Please spare our lives, please. Bam, bam, the both of them knelt on the ground and kowtowed in apology profusely. The strength which they were using was immense, causing the sound of it to reverberate through the 9 heavens just like thunder. Both of them did not dare to use any bit of powers at all. They were just slamming their heads down like mere mortals, causing a series of dull thuds to ring forth from their kowtows. Fresh blood oozed out, staining the entire ground red. When they caught sight of Lin Fan's figure, both of them were absolutely flabbergasted. This was senior brother Lin, the one who had suppressed all the remnants of the Kunlun god sect, and had even taken down their golden immortal elder with a single palm strike. If they had known that these were senior brother Lin's family members, they would not have dared to come in even if they had 10 sets of guts. Within the sect, even if senior brother Lin met with the Grandmaster, he did not have to kneel down and greet at all. Both of them knew that if they could not obtain their senior brother Lin's forgiveness right now, their lives would not leave this place intact. Lin Fan's hands were behind his back as his face was icy cold while looking at everything before him. As long as he did not say anything, Zhou Jun and Wang Yun did not dare to stop at all. At this moment, other than the sounds of the heads banging, the entire world was absolutely silent. The commoners outside were all dumbstruck. The 7 family heads were all frozen. Lin Haoming and Lin Hanyu looked at Lin Fan blankly. Ning Tikan stood up with an aghast expression, as though he had just bumped into a ghost. For everyone present, there was only a single voice ringing in their heads. Grandmaster candidate. For any single sect, these 2 words were extremely impactful. This wasn't even considering that this was the Heaven and Earth sect they were talking about. There were only 12 Grandmaster candidates in the Heaven and Earth sect, each one of them being tantamount to the heaven itself. This was especially the case within the sect where their status was definite. Other than the Grandmaster himself and a few other esteemed elders, no one else would dare to be insolent before them. And now, what did those 2 people just say? This man was the Grandmaster candidate of the Heaven and Earth sect. Lin Fan did not say anything more as he walked over to the main seat. Father, please take the main seat. The other family heads, please have a seat as well. Housekeeper, could you please change the utensils and serve some new dishes? Yes, young master. The old housekeeper was beyond elated in his heart as he sprinted like he was flying to prepare for everything. Ning Tikan gulped down his saliva as his heart sank right down to the bottom. He then rushed beside Zhou Jun and Wang Yun, and just like them, kowtowed furiously. The 3 senior sisters of Lin Hanyu stood on one side without daring to budge a single inch. They were totally petrified by the sight before them. It didn't take long before the old housekeeper returned with new utensils and removed the old ones. Lin Fan poured wine for Lin Haoming personally and toasted a cup with him. Holding the wine cup in his hand, Lin Haoming's hands were trembling right now. He then swallowed it emotionally. Good, good, good. Right now, things were truly good. Glorious. This was simply way too glorious for their family. Initially, he had thought that the most glorious moment of his life would have been when his son entered the Heaven and Earth sect. To think that they would be experiencing an even more glorious moment right now. Lin Fan took up his wine cup and rose. 7 family heads, thank you for taking care of the Lin family for the past 3 years. The 7 family heads bolted upright straight without daring to dilly-dally. With polite courtesy, they downed the entire cup respectfully. Comfortable. This was way too comfortable a feeling. The 7 family heads had never once felt this comfortable ever. What did all the wrong feelings they had earlier on amount to? It was all vented at this very moment. Lin Hanyu and her 3 senior sisters stood there without saying anything. Right now, Xiao Yuya's heart was entirely taken aback. She had not expected that junior sister Lin Hanyu's younger brother would hold such a position within the Heaven and Earth sect. Enjoy your meal, Lin Fan said with a smile. He then paused and looked at Lin Hanyu, who was standing at the entrance. Big sister, come and sit won't you? Lin Hanyu nodded her head absent-mindedly, having her brain freezing at this moment. Even sitting there, she did not know what to do at all. Chapter 1040 Judgment. Chapter 1040, judgment. During the meal, Lin Fan's expression was normal as though the entire issue did not matter to him. However, Zhou Jun and Wang Yun were feeling extremely nervous in their hearts, frightened beyond words. If senior brother Lin had scolded or whacked them, they might have felt a sense of relief. But now that senior brother Lin was expressionless without saying anything to them, it had them feeling extremely panicked. Son, how come there was no news from you for the past 3 years? Lin Haoming asked. Even though there was no intention of blaming, he still felt a little grievance in his heart. If there had been some news for the past 3 years, he wouldn't have been so worried. He naturally knew about the rumors that were spreading outside. However, he did not choose to believe in any of them in his heart. At times, he felt pretty helpless as well. After all, there had not been a single peep from Lin Fan for the past 3 years. Even if he had wanted to refute those rumors, he had to have some evidence to do so. Lin Fan chuckled out, I was training outside and met with some stuff. Hence, I didn't have the chance to get back at all. Lin Haoming nodded his head. Anyway, he was in a pretty good mood right now, so, that's the reason. But, you've got to watch out, alright? And, come back to check on us often as well. Yes, Lin Fan nodded his head. The other 7 family heads surrounding them were all smiles as they ate and drank without any hesitation. From time to time, their gazes would sweep across the people who were kneeling on the ground right now. Hue, acting tough in front of them and wanting them to be their servants. They could just look where things were now. Now that young Master Lin was back, no matter how tough these guys wanted to act, they still had to kneel there obediently without daring to make even a single sound. However, Lin Fan was the one they were most impressed with. To think that he would have gotten to such a state in just 3 mere years. This was practically enough to have gods and ghosts crying over. Grand Master candidate, how incredible was that? In fact, they were even thinking what would happen if the young Master Lin went on to be the future Grand Master of the Heaven and Earth sect one day. If he really became the Grand Master, that would be absolutely outrageous. The entire Lin family would just skyrocket into the heavens. In fact, even their own families would not lack in terms of the benefits received. The mere thought of that was getting them a little excited right now. To think that a tiny little rising dragon city could raise the Grand Master of a big sect. From now on, the rising dragon city was going to be famous around the entire endless mainland. Big brother. At this moment, there was a crisp, clean voice coming from outside, seeming to be rushing in quickly. Lin Fan looked over as his lips curled into a grin. Lin Liner had been in her house, feeling extremely terrible the entire time. The people who had followed her big sister home this time around did not make her feel good at all. In fact, she was even detesting them. However, the other party was too strong and had a high status. They weren't people she could afford to offend. Therefore, she ran straight into the house since she would feel no evil if she saw no evil. But, after the servants came to inform that the young Master Lin had returned, it uplifted Lin Liner's mood tremendously. Her own big brother was home. Lin Liner was not the only one who had arrived, there was Lin Feishui as well. And at the same time, Mrs. Lin was also rushing in while feeling exceptionally emotional. After not seeing her own child for the past 3 years, she was naturally feeling hollow in her heart. But when Lin Liner entered the house, she was absorbed by the sight before her. It was especially eye-catching for Lin Liner to see the fella she detested the most, Ning Tikan, just kneeling down there. That had her feeling pretty bewildered. Little sister, Lin Fan spoke up, indicating for her to sit down. Mrs. Lin and Lin Feishui headed up to ask about Lin Fan as well. Through the conversation he had, Lin Fan felt that it was really quite a nice feeling to have a family at times. Big brother, what are they doing? Lin Liner asked. They're just wrongdoers, Lin Fan replied indifferently, totally unbothered with them. Oh, Lin Liner nodded her head and let out a bright smile. Kneeling there, Ning Tikan and the others did not feel even a single bit of anger. Their hearts were only filled with fear. They were truly afraid right now. Even though he was the son of the Grand Master of the Metal Sword sect, the difference between the Metal Sword sect and the Heaven and Earth sect was as great as the one between Heaven and Earth themselves. There was no way to compare them at all. Not only that, the identity of the other party was that of the Grand Master candidate of the Heaven and Earth sect. Compared to his own status, that was way, way higher. The hearts of the 3 senior sisters of Lin Hanyu were long surging with tidal waves. They could not believe that junior sister Lin Hanyu's younger brother would be this incredible. In the past, they naturally knew that junior sister Lin Hanyu had a younger brother who had entered the Heaven and Earth sect. But even then, they did not bother too much about it. November LBJNN. How big was the Heaven and Earth sect, and how intense was the competition within it? If one wanted to stand out on top there, it was a task that was more difficult than difficult. Even in their small little sect, for example, it was already extremely difficult if one wanted to make a name for themselves, let alone the Heaven and Earth sect. Therefore, they did not get overly concerned with junior sister Lin's younger brother. To them, he was probably just a small nobody in the sect, someone without much of a status. But right now, they truly understood the situation. They were totally wrong about everything. Not only did junior sister Lin's younger brother have a status in the sect, his status was one that could even shock people to death. Grandmaster candidate. Even if he headed over to their sect, their own grandmaster would have to greet him respectfully without daring to get brazen in the slightest bit. When Ningtikan looked at how Lin Fan was all smiles toward his family members and the 7 family heads, he had assumed that the other party must have been appeased by now. This little life of his should be safe. But Zhou Jun and Wang Yun felt that things would definitely not end up being so simple. How could senior brother Lin spare them so easily? Bam, bam, the thudding sounds of their kowtowing got even louder. That was because in their minds, they could tell that a storm was coming. Once senior brother Lin and his family were done with their meal, it would perhaps be time for him to lay judgment on them. After some time, Lin Fan placed down the utensils in his hands. The other family heads were a little high through drinking now, the main reason being that they were absolutely ecstatic. The commoners outside had been waiting for a long time as well, and were getting particularly excited at this moment. What do you guys think young Master Lin is going to do to these fellas? I've got no idea, but I don't think that they'll be let off so easily. It's not as though he is going to kill them, right? That man seems to be the son of the Grand Master of some sect, with quite a distinguished status. No matter how high young Master Lin's status in his sect is, he shouldn't want to kill the other party, should he? That's hard to say. Take a look. At this moment, Lin Fan rose up and walked beside Zhou Jun and Wang Yun. Senior brother, please spare our lives. We really know that we're in the wrong now. Zhou Jun and Wang Yun cried out tragically. They were truly afraid, and their heads were still banging down furiously. The sounds were getting even louder, echoing out reverberatingly. They could only hope that on account of being in the same sect, senior brother Lin would be gracious and spare them this one time. At the same time, they bore an intense hatred toward Ningtikan right now. If not for this fella, they would not have had something like this happening to them. Bloody hell, even if he wanted to die, why the hell did he have to implicate them? To think that he would head over to senior brother Lin's house to act tough. Not only that, he even had senior brother Lin's family members work as his servants. Wasn't that just bloody looking for death? Looking at the 3 of them, Lin Fan's lips curled into a grin.